Chapter 1894. Outside the stairs on the top floor, the young man in white and his group stood still with calm expressions. Then, a wave of spatial energy rippled. Elder Sway, who had been bowing his head slightly, looked up. The young man in white also looked over. Accompanied by Chief Steward Chien, a young man in broken black armor slowly appeared. His aura was almost non-existent, and he could not be sensed at all. There were no medals or symbols on his armor, and his face could not be more ordinary. Even if he was placed in a crowd, he would not stand out at all. However, such a young man had been abandoned by a Chief Steward Chien. Humph! Swoosh! The young man in white moved slightly and directly blocked the stairs. Lin Feng was slightly taken aback. When he came out from the top floor, he saw the young man in white and his group. He wore the Ziwei Star Tower's emblem on his chest. He was young, but he had 3 8-star peak experts as guards. His status was obvious. Who are you? The young man in white had long eyebrows and a fair face. He was extremely handsome. As the white-clothed young man blocked the path, 2 Demon Clan experts who looked almost identical appeared behind him. They had blood-red flames burning on their foreheads, giving off an extremely terrifying feeling. Their aura was immediately released. Brother, this seems to be the first time we've met. Lin Feng smiled and glanced at the 2 fierce-looking Demon Clan experts. Is there a need to make such a big scene? There was no need to worry about safety. After all, this was Heavenly Tea Pavilion. Fighting here was no different from provoking Heavenly Tea Pavilion. I'm asking who you are. The young man in white raised his head slightly with a hint of arrogance. Which force? Which family? His words were not polite. His aura was not fake. Although he was a little arrogant, there was a sense of superiority. This young man in white obviously had a powerful background. Lin Feng frowned slightly. He had always been amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. If the young man in white spoke nicely, he might be willing to be friends. But now, what was an 8-star peak expert? He had killed countless of them in the Destiny realm. Misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. The chief steward, Qian Fulai, stood between the 2 of them and smiled apologetically. Young Master Wenxin, you've misunderstood. Brother Lin is from the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. He's here on the orders of the Pavilion Master. I'm just a small figure in the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. I dare not disobey the orders of the Chief Pavilion Lord. Please forgive me, young Master Exine. As he spoke, Qian Fulai bowed slightly, looking very sincere. Someone from the Heavenly Tea Pavilion? The white-clothed youth was slightly surprised. Seeing that Lin Feng did not deny it, he glanced at Qian Fulai and coldly snorted, I don't think you would dare to lie to me. With a wave of his long robe, the white-clothed youth left, followed by the 2 Devil Clan experts. He came here to see if there was any big shot who had a higher status than him and was more important. Originally, the white-clothed young man had thought that this was a transcendent existence on the Origin Awakening list, but he had never thought that it would be an ordinary young man. As such, he felt extremely displeased, which was why he had acted like this, wanting to see who was superior. However, when he heard that this was an internal matter of the Heavenly Tea Pavilion, the white-clothed youth felt relieved and did not have such thoughts. The Chief Pavilion Master's envoy had brought the order. The secret order of the Heavenly Tea Pavilion was naturally more important to Qian Fulai. Speak more clearly next time, Chief Steward. It would be bad if the young master misunderstood. Old Sway walked over and glanced at Qian Fulai with his dim eyes. His gaze lingered on Lin Feng for a moment before he left. Although Lin Feng looked unfamiliar, it was normal for every faction to have some elite geniuses that they secretly nurtured. The Heavenly Tea Pavilion had them, and so did the Emperor Star Pavilion. The white-clothed youth and his group came quickly and left quickly as well. Qian Fulai secretly wiped his sweat and let out a long sigh. His suspended heart was finally at ease. It had not been easy for him to obtain a big achievement, which was enough to allow him to soar and rise step by step. If he offended this young Master Wenxin at the last moment, he would have nowhere to vent his grievances. He wanted to return to Ziming City, the headquarters of the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. He could not afford to offend this young Master Wenxin. Brother Qian, This young master Wenxin seems to have a powerful background? Lin Feng asked curiously. From the way this white-clothed youth spoke and acted, and even his domineering style, he was definitely not ordinary. Not only that, he can do whatever he wants in the three great imperial cities. Who dares to offend the little emperor of the Emperor's Star Pavilion? Qian Fulai smiled bitterly. Oh, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Qian Fulai lowered his voice. Brother Lin, you might not know this since you just entered the imperial city. His name is Yin Fa Wenxin. Not only is he a direct descendant of the Yin Fa clan, but he is also the only son of the current top of the Origin Awakening list, Yin Fa Jia. His voice was not loud, but it carried a heavy weight. Origin Awakening list, the most important list in the Origin Awakening continent. Only by becoming a 9-star elite martial artist could one truly enter the Origin Awakening list. Now, the person at the top of the list was the Emperor's Star Pavilion's Emperor Star Pavilion, Yin Fa Jia, the strongest martial artist in the Origin Awakening continent. No wonder, Lin Feng suddenly understood. This white-clothed youth, Yin Fa Wenxin, was so arrogant and did not put anyone in his eyes. Others' backing was a small mountain, but his backing was a towering giant mountain. Brother Lin, you should bear with it. Don't offend him. Qian Fulai said, actually, young Master Wenxin is not a bad person. It's just, Lin Feng nodded. He was born with a high status and was born to be superior. Therefore, he did not put anyone in his eyes. Since birth, others flattered him and revolved around him. This sense of superiority was innate. It was normal for him to order people around. However, it had nothing to do with him. If there was nothing, he would not make things difficult for him, especially now that he knew his identity. Some troubles should be avoided if possible. After saying goodbye to Qian Fulai, Lin Feng immediately went to the Azure Dragon auction house. It was very close, just across the street. The two major forces stood opposite each other. They had been competing for a long time. However, this was the extreme Dragon Sky City, where the Azure Dragon auction house was located. In terms of scale and momentum, it completely overwhelmed the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. In addition, the once-in-a-century auction was about to begin. It was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Asset certification. Although Lin Feng had obtained a gold medal, it was not a top-grade crystal diamond medal. He needed asset certification. Otherwise, he would not be able to participate in the auction of top-grade treasures. The level of each medal determined the level of treasures that could be auctioned. If it was a bright silver medal, no matter how many asset certifications he had, he would not be able to participate in the auction of top-grade treasures, because his status was not high enough. I'm here. Lin Feng was about to enter the main hall when he suddenly frowned. In the distance, dozens of figures were standing. They were the white-clothed youth, Yin Fa Wenxin, and his group that he had met at the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. I bumped into them again. Lin Feng was helpless. Chapter 1895. Lin Feng noticed Yin Fa Wenxin, and so did Yin Fa Wenxin. Including Elder Sui, several pairs of eyes looked at him. Although they were curious, they were not hostile like before. Lin Feng nodded slightly to Yin Fa Wenxin and the others as a greeting, then entered the Azure Dragon auction house. Oh! Yin Fa Wenxin raised his long eyebrows. Asset verification. Elder Sui was experienced and could tell a glance. Yin Fa Wenxin smiled knowingly. He had the crystal diamond medal, so he did not need asset verification. This represented his strength and status, and it also represented that he was an expert at the top of the pyramid in Origin Continent. As for the other medals, whether it was the silver medal or the gold medal, they were all the same. Mediocre. I thought he was more powerful. Yin Fa Wenxin sneered. Elder Sui's eyes flickered as he looked at the direction Lin Feng had entered. Judging from his age, he is most likely the favorite disciple of one of the pavilion masters. In Origin Continent, he has some status, but Elder Sui dragged his voice and smiled. Compared to young master, he is far from it. Although Yin Fa1Xn was only an 8-star expert, he was the only son of Yin Fa so his status was naturally different. He was much higher than ordinary 9-star experts. Let's go, young master. Along is still waiting for us. Young master, you can take a look at the list of treasures in this auction and see which one suits you, Elder Sway said with a smile. It was different with privilege. Other warriors had to complete asset verification, but Yin Fa1Xin did not need to do that. He could even see all the auction items. The Azure Dragon auction house would naturally open a back door for such a big figure. Okay, with his hands behind his back, Yin Fa1Xn entered the Azure Dragon auction house. The Azure Dragon auction house was huge, several times bigger than the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. The main auction hall alone was comparable to the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. In the extreme Dragon Sky City, the Azure Dragon auction house was the host, so it was naturally different. In Ziming City, the Azure Dragon auction house was far inferior to the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. There was naturally a difference between the headquarters and the branch. On one side, Yin Fa1Xin entered the main hall of the Azure Dragon auction house under the hospitality of the supervisor. On the other side, Lin Feng also entered the asset verification area in the outer area. So many people. Lin Feng's gaze swept across the area. There were hundreds of Azure Dragon auction houses staff working busily. Each area was separated from each other, and each room was completely sealed off. Privacy was very important. After all, the verification of assets required a large number of void crystals, which would inevitably attract the attention of others. If they were to line up, they would have to wait for at least half a day. Lin Feng nodded. He wasn't too surprised. After all, there were less than 3 days left before the start of the auction. The asset certification area for the gold medal. Lin Feng quickly found the location. Hundreds of areas were evenly divided. The bronze medal certification area had the most people and occupied the most area. Relatively speaking, there were fewer people in the gold medal area, but it seemed that they would still have to wait for a few hours. After all, it would take a lot of time for the gold medal to be certified. Find someone to change seats. As the saying goes, money makes the world go round. Although the martial artists who were certified with the gold badge were either rich or noble, and almost all of them were 8-star martial artists, there were also quite a number of 7-star martial artists. After taking out 100,000 void crystals, Lin Feng quickly found someone who was willing to change seats. Even for an 8-star martial artist, 100,000 void crystals was not a small number. Not to mention that it was just a new line, so why not? Directly cutting the line in front of everyone caused a commotion. Although some people were sarcastic, they just muttered a few complaints. After all, this was reasonable and did not violate any rules. In less than a moment, Lin Feng entered. This was a transparent room surrounded by transparent glass. One couldn't see the outside from the inside, but one could see the inside from the outside. It was mainly for monitoring the staff and the second inspection. So many. Lin Feng couldn't see with his naked eyes, but he could vaguely feel their aura. His sixth sense directly told him that there were a lot of Azure Dragon auction house's martial artists outside. They were not prying into the privacy of the guests. On the contrary, they were here to protect every guest. Sir, this is your first asset certification. The staff of the Azure Dragon auction house moved very skillfully. After taking Lin Feng's gold medal, they quickly got busy. Lowest, ordinary, or the top-notch? Top-notch. Lin Feng did not hesitate. Before coming, he had already learned about it. There were 3 grades for the first asset certification. Normally, it was the ordinary standard, which was 100 million void crystals. Because it was impossible for every martial artist to maintain 100 million void crystals in liquid funds, there was a minimum standard. After completing the first asset certification, there was no minimum for the second asset certification. The ordinary standard could auction all the treasures except for the finale. The top-notch standard was basically comparable to the top-notch medal, which was the crystal diamond medal. The only difference was the treatment. For example, the seating during the auction, the service standard of the auction house, and so on. In terms of auction, the top-notch gold medal was enough. The certification requires 1 billion void crystals. The staff of the Azure Dragon auction house stared at Lin Feng. The number of top-notch certifications was actually quite small. 1 in 100 was already not bad. 1 billion void crystals was more than the wealth of most 8-star martial artists. Right now, a young man wearing a broken black armor had so much money. Soon, Lin Feng dispelled the staff's concerns with practical actions. When the endless amount of void crystals appeared, the pupils of the staff of the Azure Dragon auction house were dilated and their heartbeats accelerated. It was more than 1 billion void crystals. The pile of void crystals in front of them was estimated to be close to 2 billion. Sir, please wait a moment. The staff showed a respectful look in an instant. His expression was extremely dignified, and his movements were obviously faster. He just casually counted and completed all the certifications. As long as one was not stupid, they could see that the number of void crystals in front of them was far more than 1 billion void crystals. That was exactly what Lin Feng meant. 1 billion void crystals, he still had to count. He directly took out 2 billion void crystals, clean and neat. This is your medal, sir. The staff respectfully bowed slightly and handed it over with both hands. Lin Feng nodded and took the gold medal with the crystal diamond medal. He raised his hand and kept all the void crystals. He took out a small dot and put on the table, "Good efficiency." The staff's eyes lit up in an instant. He was pleasantly surprised and bowed again and again. "Thank you, sir. Thank you." This small dot of void crystals was more than 10,000. For an ordinary staff, it was more than 10 years of his salary. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. After completing the asset certification, he turned around and left. Chapter 1896. Gold Badge Asset Certification Area, Monitoring Room. All the Gold Badge certification rooms were connected from end to end, forming a huge ring. The center of the ring was the monitoring room. At this time, the 3 8-star supervisors were having a heated discussion. Where did this young man come from? I've never seen him before. He's definitely not from Extreme Dragon Sky City. He doesn't have the symbol of the 8 forces on him. Is he an apprentice of a solo expert? Possibly. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to take out nearly 2 billion void crystals. Even some 9-star experts don't have that much wealth. An 8-star expert's wealth was usually between 100 million and 1 billion. The poorer ones could still take out 100 million to 200 million void crystals. At most, they could sell some treasures. Therefore, 8-star experts usually had top-grade, ordinary true treasures or elite true treasures. A 9-star expert's wealth was usually above 1 billion void crystals. Some even had tens of billions of void crystals. For example, the rich people behind Azure Dragon Auction House and Heavenly Tea Pavilion all had tens of billions of void crystals. However, money was just a number to them. However, some poor 9-star experts only had a few billion void crystals. Some even had less than 1 billion void crystals. Therefore, Lin Feng took out such a large amount of void crystals. It was indeed amazing, because even the apprentice of a 9-star expert couldn't take out such a large amount of void crystals. 9-star experts had a lot of money, but it didn't mean that they would give their apprentices too much. "What's wrong?" A voice suddenly sounded. It was as if a flower orchard had appeared. It was a beautiful woman in a white robe. Her oval-shaped face was fair and rosy, as if it was made of water. She had a head of beautiful, milky white hair, and every strand of it was like the most exquisite silk. Under the white robe was an exquisite and full perfect figure, and that soft and delicate face was like a flawless work of art. "Master! Master!" All the supervisors and supervisors bowed. The beautiful woman in the white robe was one of the 3 Dragon Kings of Azure Dragon Auction House, by Jing Dragon King. She was ranked 70th on the Origin Awakening list. Although she was ranked last, Bai Jing Dragon King's name was still very famous. Not only because of her beautiful appearance, but also because she was the person in charge of Azure Dragon Auction House. The entire business side was under her control. The other 2 Dragon Kings did not participate. It could be said that Bai Jing Dragon King was the lifeline of the Azure Dragon Auction House. She single-handedly propped up one of origin awakened continent's two monetary empires. She was the dream lover of countless experts in the origin awakening continent. Someone once joked that whoever married Dragon King Bai Jing would be perfect and would not lack anything. She had the looks, the figure, the money, the power, and the strength. However, Bai Jing Dragon King was still single. She had no lack of suitors, including 9-star experts like the Dark Dream Dragon King. All of them were interested in the White Clarity Dragon Queen. Reporting to the Dragon King, "It's like this." The three inspectors immediately reported what they had seen. Bai Jing Dragon King's beautiful eyes flickered as she nodded her head slightly. Her long and slender fingers that were like jade pearls moved in the air, casually taking out 2 billion void crystals. A human youth whose armor is shattered. Bai Jing Dragon King's beautiful eyes flashed with a charming luster, which made the supervisors not dare to look at her directly. If they were not careful, they would be charmed. "Give me his medal number." "Yes." The supervisors immediately handed it over. Bai Jing Dragon King took it and glanced at it. "Arrange for him to be in seat number 10. Ah. The three supervisors looked at each other. The diamond medal was naturally placed in the best box in the auction hall. The other 3 medals were placed in different positions, from the first to the 3rd level of the auction hall. The first level was naturally for the martial artists with the most ordinary medals. There were the most seats, but they were only seats. The second level was for the martial artists with the bright silver medal. They were circular booths, which were much more extravagant and grand. After all, compared to the first level, there were much fewer people on the second level. Naturally, there were more seats. The third level was for the experts with the gold medal. There were even fewer of them. The seats changed from circular booths to tens of thousands of square meters in size. There were attendants to serve them, and there were fine wines and delicacies. After all, an auction would last for a long time. Among them, the different numbers in the hall signified different statuses. The closer the number was to the front, the bigger the area of the hall, representing higher statuses. Every 10 was a level representing status and wealth. Although number 10 was at the bottom of the first level, it was still the first level. Compared to the second level, it was faintly higher. But Dragon King, there are more than 50 people with the highest certification of the gold medal. It is estimated that 1/3 of them can take out 2 billion void crystals. Some of them have high statuses. If this little guy with no power and no reputation is placed in seat number 10, will it? One of the supervisors was worried. No. Bai Jing Dragon King's voice was pleasant to the ears, and her expression was brilliant. There are indeed close to 20 people who can take out 2 billion void crystals. However, their auction amount should not exceed that of the human youth. For our auction hall, money is what matters, not people. What's more, if we move their seats, it might stimulate them to spend more. Bai Jing Dragon King's beautiful eyes flickered, and she smiled. The 3 supervisors were instantly enlightened, and they could not help but exclaim in admiration. Seat number 10. Bai Jing Dragon King's beautiful eyes looked into the distance with a hint of curiosity. Is he a Lone Ranger's disciple, or a newly cultivated elite genius of the Milky Way's human tribe? 2 billion void crystals. TSK, that's a lot. Bai Jing Dragon King's smile was mesmerizing. Lin Feng quickly left the Tsang Dragon auction hall. Now, he was not worried about his identity being exposed. With the strength of an 8-star, he could stand firm in the origin awakened continent. Indeed, he had offended Extreme Fatality and killed their people. So what? After all, Extreme Fatality was the one who made the first move. If Extreme Fatality wanted to continue the fight, he would accept it. As the saying goes, those who have nothing to lose are not afraid of those who wear shoes. He had even made it out of the Heavenly Fate region alive, so why would he be afraid of Extreme Fatality? Other than the key to the turbulent void, let's see if there are any treasures suitable for me in the big auction. What Lin Feng wanted the most was naturally an outstanding treasure. Although he had obtained a Mashua boat, it was far from enough. Lin Feng knew very well that after entering the turbulent void, his competitors would not only be the 8-star experts. That was the furnace at the top of the Origin Awakened continent. Without enough strength, it was impossible to enter the depths of the turbulent void. Moreover, he might encounter the Destiny race again. Although the Destiny race's powerhouses would lose their geographical advantage at that time, their 9-star strength was no joke. Entering the turbulent void, he had to be fully prepared. He had to fight in his best condition. Chapter 1897. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng didn't stay idle either. He continued to control the superior true treasure, the Moshua boat. This would be his trump card. In the 100,000 times time cultivation formation, 3 days was equivalent to 300,000 days, no less. For other warriors, their souls wouldn't be able to withstand the 100,000 times time cultivation array for long. Even a 9-star warrior couldn't cultivate in it forever, but Lin Feng was different. With the 10,000 origin mustard stone, Lin Feng's soul had been nurtured to become extremely powerful. In terms of quality, no one in the entire Origin Awakened continent could compare to Lin Feng's soul. Not to mention the fact that the 10,000 Origin Mustard Stone itself had outstanding abilities. Master, I want to go too. Mei-Yin pulled Mist Cloud's robe, pouting her sexy little mouth, and said pitifully. Mist Cloud usually spoiled this little disciple, so he obviously couldn't do anything about her. Yenair, don't you have the bright silver medal? But I want to go to the 3rd floor hall to see the world. Master, Mei-Yin shook Mist Cloud's arm. Her big eyes seemed to be able to speak, but she didn't look at Mist Cloud. Instead, she looked at Lin Feng eagerly. Let Mei-Yin go with you, senior. One more person won't take up much space. Lin Feng smiled. The hall was at least 10,000 square meters. Not to mention one person, even 10 people could easily sit down. I'm sorry, Brother Lin Feng, Mist Cloud said embarrassedly. Then he rolled his eyes at Mei-Yin, but he couldn't do anything about this little disciple. Mei-Yin smiled until her eyes were like crescent moons. She stuck out her lilac tongue, looking like she had succeeded in her little trick. The three set off immediately. It wasn't far from a mansion to the Azure Dragon Auction Hall. However, the Azure Dragon Auction Hall was packed with people. It was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. It was very noisy and lively. Let's go this way, Brother Lin Feng. Mist Cloud was familiar with the place. He led Lin Feng up the stairs from the side. Below is the auction hall of the 1st floor. It's very busy just to enter. There are special passageways to enter the 2nd and 3rd floors. I'm a little unfamiliar with it since it's my first time here. Plus, it's not easy to find it when there are a lot of people. Lin Feng nodded. When there were so many people just now, the intersection was indeed blocked. I didn't expect it to be this lively. Lin Feng smiled. Previously, during the asset verification, he thought that there were already a lot of people. He didn't expect that there would be a lot of people at the official auction. It was no wonder that the Heavenly Tea Pavilion was unable to withstand the pressure. Master, there are a lot of people at the Tianming Pavilion across the street today. What's going on? Mei-Yin tilted her head and asked curiously. The Heavenly Tea Pavilion was completely deserted during the auction 100 years ago. The Heavenly Tea Pavilion is holding a Supreme Treasure Appreciation Conference today and is secretly competing with the Azure Dragon Auction House. Misty Cloud Master lightly stroked his long beard as his eyes flickered. This Heavenly Tea Pavilion, I don't know where they got 1,000 Supreme Treasures. Although they're only ordinary Supreme Treasures, this number is incredible. In terms of wealth, the Azure Dragon Auction House is not even half of the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. This so-called richest force in the Origin Awakening continent is indeed profound and cannot be underestimated. 1,000 ordinary Supreme Treasures. Mei-Yin covered her mouth in shock. How can there be so many? The last auction held by the Azure Dragon Auction House only auctioned a few dozen Supreme Treasures. I don't know. Misty Cloud Master smiled bitterly and sighed softly. This Heavenly Tea Pavilion scared everyone without saying anything. If they want to do the same thing as the Azure Dragon Auction House and hold an auction of 1,000 ordinary Supreme Treasures today, the Azure Dragon Auction House will suffer a great loss. The Heavenly Tea Pavilion won't do such a thing that harms others without benefiting themselves, Lin Feng said with a smile. That's right. The biggest taboo for businessmen is fighting spirit. Misty Cloud Master said, splitting the time is good for everyone. Besides, the Heavenly Tea Pavilion wants to save face. This is enough to achieve their goal. I really don't know where they got so many supreme treasures, Mei Yin muttered and looked at Lin Feng with her beautiful eyes. Do you know, Brother Lin? Big Dipper and the Azure Dragon Auction House were on the same side. Misty Cloud Master and Mei Yin naturally stood on the Azure Dragon Auction House's side. I don't know. Lin Feng smiled. Following the stairs, Lin Feng and the other two quickly arrived at the third floor. Further up was the private room level where the crystal diamond medallion was. Huge private rooms were set up in the air. The completely enclosed model gave other martial artists endless mysteries and guesses. From the outside, one couldn't see inside. Each private room was like a fortress in the air, high and mighty. Those in the private rooms were all famous figures in the Origin Awakening continent. Some were from the 5 major races, some were from the 8 major forces, and some were even 9-star experts. Money alone wasn't enough. One had to have status and status. It would be great if we could go up and take a look, Mei Yin said enviously. Misty Cloud Master smiled. Actually, it's nothing special. It's just a little higher and the degree of silence is better. As an upper echelon of Big Dipper, Misty Cloud Master had naturally been to the highest private room and participated in the auction. Lin Feng glanced over and nodded with a smile. Auctions are always won by the highest bidder. As long as the bid is high, it doesn't matter even if you sit at the bottom. Well said, brother. A bald man walked over from the side. He wore a luxurious golden robe and curled his lips. What's so great about sitting up there? You can't buy anything without money. Old Misty, is this little brother your new disciple? The bald robe man asked. Misty Cloud Master smiled and shook his head. No, he's my guest from afar. I'm only here to accompany him to the auction. Oh, the bald robe man's eyes lit up. He sized up Lin Feng. Little brother, you look unfamiliar. Where's your sect? Misty Cloud Master smiled and interrupted. Come, Lin Feng. Let me introduce you. This is Hao Guang. He's also a Big Dipper like me. He's an old friend of mine for hundreds of years. Old Hao Lin Feng. Oh, the bald robe man, Hao Guang, nodded thoughtfully. He was also a smart man. Seeing Misty Cloud Master's brief introduction, he knew what was going on. He laughed and extended his hand. Brother Lin, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Senior Hao. Lin Feng smiled and extended his hand. Swoosh. Hao Guang's eyes flashed. He glanced at the number tag on Lin Feng's waist. There was a 10 printed on it. Hao Guang's heart skipped a beat. Then he laughed heartily. Brother Lin, you're a real man. After the auction, let's have a drink and be friends. Sure. Lin Feng smiled. They chatted for a while and parted ways. In the extreme Dragon Sky City, Misty Cloud Master had quite a high status. He had a lot of friends along the way. Misty Cloud Master smiled at Lin Feng apologetically. Lin Feng didn't mind. It wasn't a bad thing to make more friends. We're here. Lin Feng pointed ahead. There was a huge, luxurious hall that was 30,000 square meters in size. There was a 10 printed on the top of the hall. Chapter 1898. Hello, sir. Hello, Mississippi. The 6 attendants were divided into 2 rows, men and women, standing respectfully outside the hall. When they saw Lin Feng and the other 2, they bowed. They wore the same uniform with the unique logo of the Azure Dragon Auction House on it. Wow, Mei Yin's eyes lit up and she ran straight in. Lin Feng smiled and entered with Misty Cloud. Compared to the seats on the 2nd floor, the scale of the hall was much larger. Not only were there 5 more attendants, but the area was dozens of times larger. The seats on the 2nd floor were all of the same size. Although they were not small and were much larger than the individual seats on the 1st floor, they were still far from the tens of thousands of square meters on the 3rd floor. It's so big here. Mei Yin looked around curiously. Misty Cloud sat down and smiled. This is seat number 10. It's several times larger than an ordinary hall. Lin Feng looked into the distance. There were bigger halls than this one, and there were more smaller ones. The private rooms above were all gigantic and boundless. However, Lin Feng did not have too many requirements for this. Even if there was only one seat on the first floor, it didn't matter. The key was that they could participate in the auction of any treasure. Master, I heard from senior brother that you were in seat number 33 last time. Mei Yin's big eyes flashed, and she asked curiously, "Isn't the smaller the better? Is Brother Lin's status higher than yours?" "Yes." Misty Cloud nodded with a smile. In fact, Misty Cloud was also a little surprised. When he saw the seat number in the exchange hall, he was also shocked. Seat number 10. That was already the first-class seat. Those who could sit in this class seat were either second to the guests in the upper rooms or rich enough to rival a country, but their status was not high enough. Misty Cloud had no idea about Lin Feng's background. Brother Lin is so amazing. Mei Yin's bright eyes seemed to be able to discharge electricity as she looked straight at Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled slightly and did not explain, because even he did not know what was going on. It's still early for the auction. Let's order something to eat and drink first. Lin Feng looked at Misty Cloud and Mei Yin and waved to the attendant. Azure Dragon Auction House, the top of the auction hall. In the middle of the huge boxes, like stars surrounding the moon, stood a dazzling circular building. It emitted colorful lights, rendering the entire auction hall extremely stylish. However, what few people knew was that this circular building was actually not much different from a private room. Everything was available inside, and the area was larger, so it could accommodate more people. The only difference was that this box was almost completely disconnected from the outside world, so it naturally couldn't participate in the auction. This was the place where the inspectors and inspectors of the Azure Dragon Auction House were located, responsible for monitoring and maintaining the entire auction process. And the person in charge was one of the 3 great Dragon Kings of the Azure Dragon Auction House, by Jing Dragon King. It's him. By Jing Dragon King's beautiful eyes flickered. She looked straight at Hall 10 and saw Lin Feng at a glance. "Sir, you've seen him before?" Inspector Wang asked curiously. The white Jing Dragon King smile was charming. With a light flick of her finger, her beautiful eyes glinted. "He is the newly appointed honorary pavilion master of the Heavenly Tea Pavilion, Lin Feng." "What? It can't be. He's so young." All the inspectors and inspectors were stunned. To become the honorary pavilion master of the Heavenly Tea Pavilion, the conditions were extremely harsh. One should know that this was the highest position in the outside world. One could only enjoy benefits without paying any price. It was the dream of almost every martial artist in the Origin Awakening continent. "It's him." By Jing Dragon King nodded slightly. "He matches the information. I didn't expect him to be a human youth." By Jing Dragon King's words were clearly beyond her expectations. Inspector Li suddenly clapped his hands as realization dawned on him. Could it be that he's the person behind the scenes who provided the 1,000 treasures to the Heavenly Tea Pavilion? Gasp! Everyone gasped. As the higher-ups of the Azure Dragon Auction House, they naturally knew that the Heavenly Tea Pavilion's targeting incident this time was a slap to the Azure Dragon Auction House's face, directly turning the tables on them. Most likely. The other 2 inspectors nodded. It was extremely difficult to become the honorary pavilion master of the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. It was rare for even one to become the honorary pavilion master of the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. It just so happened that the Heavenly Tea Pavilion had an additional 1,000 treasures during this Supreme Treasure Appreciation Conference. Coincidentally, Lin Feng had just been appointed as the honorary pavilion master. It was too much of a coincidence. As long as one used their brains, they would know that there was a connection. Although the news from both sides of the Heavenly Tea Pavilion was sealed, the Azure Dragon Auction House and the Heavenly Tea Pavilion had been at odds for so many years that they knew each other's background. Not only did the Azure Dragon Auction House have spies in the Heavenly Tea Pavilion, but the Azure Dragon Auction House also had spies in the Azure Dragon Auction House. Send someone to investigate his background immediately. Bai Jing Dragon King's beautiful eyes flashed as she gave the order. "Yes, my lord." On the 4th floor of the Azure Dragon Auction House, private room number 3. It's only number 3. Yin Fa when Xan stood in front of the window with his chin slightly raised, his snow-white neck exuding incomparable arrogance. He looked down through the brown glass, somewhat indignant and angry. Behind him, Old Sway, two peak 8-star demon experts, and a group of guards stood respectfully. Reporting to young master, there are two important figures in private room number 1 and number 2. Old Sway frowned slightly and said, as far as this old man knows, the person in private room number 2 is a 9-star void dragon expert of the 5 great clans. Yin Fa when Xian frowned and pursed his lips. If it was an ordinary Origin Awakening list expert, his status might be higher than the other party. But if it was a real important figure, with his current status in the Azure Dragon auction house, he was still a little inferior. Void Dragon Clan. Yin Fa when Xian was slightly surprised, his expression serious. Then who is the important figure in private room number 1? This old man is not sure, Old Sway said. However, I believe that they have received the news and have come for that treasure. Yin Fa when Xian's eyes turned cold when he heard this. He clenched his fists and said, I must get this treasure. On the 3rd floor, private room number 10. What's wrong, Brother Lin Feng? Misty Cloud asked. Nothing, it's just that someone is looking at me. Lin Feng glanced at the top of the auction hall, at the colorful circular building, and said indifferently. Misty Cloud nodded. Maybe it's a guest in one of the private rooms. Brother Lin Feng is so young and talented, naturally attracting people's attention. Misty Cloud smiled. In private room number 10, an unfamiliar human youth. It would be strange if he didn't attract attention. Lin Feng nodded. Although he couldn't sense his aura, his 6th sense was very clear. However, as Misty Cloud had said, the people in private room number 10 were all familiar faces. It was his first time participating, so it was inevitable that he would attract attention. Looking down, the seats on the 1st floor were basically full. Time slowly passed, and a nervous and expectant mood filled the auction hall. Suddenly, rumble, a thunderous noise sounded, and the main stage in the middle of the auction hall slowly rose. A beautiful and charming human woman appeared in front of everyone's eyes, with a soul-stirring smile. The Azure Dragon Auction House's ace auctioneer, Qianyue Yan. I announce that the once-in-a-century auction will now begin. Qianyue Yan said with a smile, as if the world's most pleasant voice reverberated in the hall. Chapter 1899. The applause was thunderous, and the crowd was boiling. The appearance of Qianyue Yan made the long-awaited auction finally lively. Nervousness and excitement filled every cultivator's face. One by one, the auction items appeared on the stage, dazzling everyone's eyes. Next, let's begin the first auction. Qianyue Yan revealed a smile. Her red lips slightly opened and exhaled a fragrant breath, causing the eyes of countless men on the stage to turn red. It was unknown whether they were excited for the treasures or for her. Is this the Azure Dragon Auction House's ace auctioneer? Lin Feng looked at Qianyue Yan, who was as beautiful as a flower. He had to admit that this woman was quite charming. Mature, dignified, charming, elegant, intellectual. Coupled with that clear outline and flawless face, she could absolutely be called the dream lover of every man. If Mei Yin was a budding orchid, then Qianyue Yan was a blooming rose. Humph, what's so great about her? Mei Yin pouted slightly, but her beautiful eyes couldn't help but look at the stunning woman on the stage. Misty Cloud smiled and said, Heavenly Tea Pavilion has tried to poach Qianyue Yan several times, but failed. This is also one of the main reasons why Heavenly Tea Pavilion's auction business has never been successful. Unless Dragon Queen Bai Jing is willing to show her face in public, Heavenly Tea Pavilion can't compare to Azure Dragon Auction House in terms of auctioneers. Lin Feng nodded. He knew how important an auctioneer was to an auction house. A treasure that was originally worth 10,000 void crystals, with a good auctioneer, could be auctioned for 15,000 or even 20,000 void crystals. Knowing how to adjust the atmosphere and attract attention, possessing excellent connections and EQ, being slick and eloquent, it was definitely not an easy task to nurture an ace auctioneer. Many times, this was also a kind of talent. Under Qianyue Yan's auspices, The first auction began in an orderly manner. Just like a small bridge over a flowing river, a small stream flowed continuously. What was clearly a very ordinary auction item could always become very interesting and lively under her sweet smile and introduction. The audience laughed heartily. With her status, there is no need for her to personally auction the first item. Misty Cloud said. Lin Feng nodded. There were a total of 4 auctions, and the value of the treasures in each auction varied greatly, corresponding to the 4 classes of medal holders. Generally speaking, holders of bronze badges would not be able to participate in the next 3 auctions. Bright silver badges would not be able to participate in the last 2 auctions. Gold badges would not be able to participate in the last auction. Each medal holder could only participate in auctions that were of a lower rank than the medal. Of course, this was not the case. For example, Lin Feng had the gold medal. After going through top-level certification, he would be able to participate in the finale auction. It was the same for other medal holders. The highest they could participate in was 1 level, but only 1 level. For example, the holder of the bright silver medal, even if he or she was certified, he or she would not be able to participate in the final auction. The first auction is so boring. Mei Yin rested her chin on her hand and said in boredom. Lin Feng smiled. Yang Kai was indeed not interested. An auction of several thousand void crystals was indeed very expensive for ordinary cultivators, but for 7-star and 8-star masters, it was almost worthless, except for some special fruits of heaven and earth. In the beginning, Lin Feng had casually bid for some of the items. Later on, this mission was snatched up by the excited Mei Yin. Lin Feng didn't care and let her have her fun. After all, it didn't matter even if the price was a little higher. My little disciple is naughty. Sorry about that, Brother Lin Feng. Misty Cloud said embarrassedly. It's okay. Mei Yin is honest. That's good. Lin Feng's cultivation was self-cultivation. He wanted to be himself, so he wasn't averse to Mei Yin's temperament. Oh, Misty Cloud's eyes lit up when he heard this. Lin Feng smiled. I don't have any other meaning. Senior, please don't misunderstand. No. How could this old man misunderstand? Misty Cloud stroked his beard and laughed. Lin Feng smiled. This kind of thing was often worse the more he explained, so he changed the topic. The auction would last for a long time, especially the first and second auctions. Because there were many treasures and many people, it would not be finished in a short time. There was no hurry. Lin Feng and Misty Cloud chatted casually about the 8 major forces, the 5 major races, the rise and fall of the Origin Awakened continent, the current situation, and even various things in the chaotic void. He benefited a lot. As the saying goes, listening to a wise man is better than reading 10 years of books. Misty Cloud was also an 8-star expert and held a high position in the Heavenly Dipper realm. He was naturally knowledgeable and had a thorough understanding of the situation in the entire Origin Awakened continent, including the experts on the Origin Awakened list. It was an eye-opener for Lin Feng. The 5 major races, the 8 major forces, each of them was quite powerful. The strongest of the 5 major races was undoubtedly the Destiny race with a deep foundation. The Winged race and the Tsang Demon race had huge territories and the largest numbers, so they could not be underestimated. The Milky Way human race and the Void Dragon race were the most mysterious. Milky Way human race? Lin Feng heard the word Milky Way, and his heart throbbed the most. It was because he himself came from the Milky Way. Misty Cloud's eyes flashed as he said, the human race of the Milky Way is a human race. Like the Void Dragon race, they follow the elite strategy. Although their numbers are small, every human race of the Milky Way is an elite and cannot be underestimated. Each of the 5 major races has stood for at least tens of thousands of years and has a deep foundation. Moreover, the cohesiveness of the same race is often stronger. Once a war breaks out, they can erupt with amazing power. This is something that the 8 major forces cannot compare with. Of course, the 8 major forces also have their own advantages. They are tolerant and can absorb all kinds of geniuses, unlike the 5 major races who are stagnant and confined. Listening to Misty Cloud's explanation, Lin Feng gained a lot. In particular, He knew a lot about the human race of the Milky Way. Is the name a coincidence, or does the human race of the Milky Way really come from the Milky Way? Lin Feng was very curious, but he could not find out any secrets. After all, the human race of the Milky Way was too mysterious. Unlike the 8 major forces, the human race of the Milky Way did not even have any logo on their clothes. In other words, even if they stood in front of you, you might not recognize them. After all, there were too many human powerhouses. There will always be a chance, Lin Feng thought. As he became stronger and stronger, he gradually stood at the top of the pyramid of the Origin Awakened continent. The 5 major races, the 8 major forces, and the powerhouses on the Origin Awakened list. He would meet each of them sooner or later. The auction was in full swing. Mei Yin, who was authorized by Lin Feng, was also very happy and enjoyed the auction. Soon, the first auction came to an end, and then the second auction began. Under the hosting of Qianyue Yin, everything was so natural and smooth, and there were no disputes or problems. The second auction, the third auction, the auction slowly reached its climax. The cultivators on the first and second floor had already stopped and were replaced by the powerhouses on the third floor, which was the floor where Lin Feng was. The cultivators with golden medals began to bid. Big Brother Lin, this Louis stone fruit is already worth 23 million void crystals. Do we still want it? Mei Yin's little face was a little red with excitement. She turned her head and asked. Of course. Lin Feng smiled. Don't worry about the price. Just bid. It doesn't matter even if it is 230 million void crystals. Chapter 1900. 27 million void crystals, 27 million void crystals going once, 27 million void crystals going twice, 27 million void crystals going thrice. Congratulations to the VIP in position 10 for obtaining 3 Louis stone fruits. Next, we're going to auction a set of rare soul secret techniques. 18 million void crystals. Congratulations to the VIP in position 10 for obtaining 7 vermilion grass. 57 million void crystals. Congratulations to the VIP in position 10 for obtaining 2 dragon eye taro. The hubbub continued, and heated discussions continued one after another. In the third auction, various heaven and earth fruits were undoubtedly the most important. After all, heaven and earth fruits worth more than 10 million void crystals belonged to the top level. Although there were heaven and earth fruits worth more than 100 million void crystals, they were too rare. Unlike the previous auctions where everyone fought for the fruits of heaven and earth in this auction, it was almost always the guest in seat number 10 who obtained the fruits of heaven and earth. No matter the price, no matter who bid, the VIP in position 10 would bid even higher. Once or twice was not surprising, but once it happened more than once, it made people curious. However, the first, second, and third floors were built in an inverted cone, coupled with a unique spatial shield, so the cultivators on the lower 2 floors could not see the appearance of the powerhouse on the third floor. He spent 450 million void crystals, right? More than that, he spent more than 600 million. The heaven and earth fruits in the second auction were also bought by the VIP in position 10. He's so rich, I wonder which big family he's from. He should be an apprentice of a lone wolf. Otherwise, he wouldn't be sitting on the third floor. Maybe he's a nouveau riche who found a big treasure. All kinds of comments entered his ears, but Lin Feng smiled knowingly and did not care. He continued to do what he needed to do and buy what he needed to buy. Money was not important to him. Although he sold nearly 1,000 supreme treasures, they were only ordinary supreme treasures. There were hundreds of exquisite supreme treasures that had not been sold yet. Those were the real high prices. Every exquisite supreme treasure was worth tens of millions of void crystals at the moment, and the expensive ones were directly worth hundreds of millions. However, for Lin Feng, these exquisite supreme treasures were of little help to his strength. Although buying heaven and earth fruits would not improve his strength much. After all, his physical fitness was already very strong. It could more or less increase it a little. After all, there were a lot of them. I wonder how much Tianming Pavilion can receive. Including what's being auctioned here, I estimate that the price will increase by at least 20% to 30%, and at most 40% to 50%. Lin Feng knew very well that it wasn't that the heaven and earth fruit wasn't good, but that his current physical fitness was already heaven-defying. If a team of 10 people had 10 more people, it would be doubled. However, an increase of 10 people in a team of 100 was already very small. Adding 10 more people to a team of 1,000 or 10,000 would be like throwing a stone into the sea. It wouldn't even cause a ripple. Fourth floor, room 3. How stupid. Yin Fa when Xian clasped his hand behind his back and looked down. The fourth floor had a high vantage point, so he could naturally see the third floor. However, he could only see the outside of the various halls. It was just like how one could see through the balcony of a room, but not the inside of the room. At this moment, the one participating in the auction outside the hall was Mei Yin, who was in high spirits. Unlike Lin Feng, it was her first time participating in such an exciting auction, so she was naturally extremely excited. Her delicate and beautiful face flickered with a bright and moving sheen, like a beautiful orchid that captivated the birds and beasts. However, there was no appreciation or love in Yin Fa when Xian's eyes. There was only disdain. You don't even know whether the heaven and earth fruit is good or bad. You don't even have the basic ability to distinguish between good and bad. Yin Fa when Xian raised his head slightly and sneered coldly. There were many kinds of heaven and earth fruits. Some focused on strengthening physical fitness, some focused on recovery, and some focused on the energy of heaven and earth. Although each kind of heaven and earth fruit would more or less strengthen the body, the utilization rate was different. Simply put, for the same heaven and earth fruit that cost 10 million void crystals, some could provide 10 units of body strengthening, some could only provide 1 unit of body strengthening, and some could provide 100 units of body strengthening. The difference was huge. However, Mei Yin's auction didn't discriminate between right and wrong. They only chose the expensive ones, not the good ones. Young master, you're experienced and knowledgeable. Of course, you're not comparable to these country bumpkins. Elder Sui smiled and echoed. Yin Fa when Xian smiled faintly with a little pride. His physical fitness had already been strengthened to the limit. His father had also prepared all kinds of fruits of heaven and earth and energy sources for the subsequent strengthening. As long as he became a 9-star expert or his bloodline transformed, he would be able to complete the next stage of strengthening his body immediately. However, sometimes the people that the auction is most afraid of encountering are these nouveau riches who want to participate in everything. Elder Sui frowned slightly. I don't know if it will affect the auction when we buy that treasure. Yin Fa when Xian sneered. Just her. We don't even know if she's qualified to participate in the finale auction. That's true, Elder Sui said. The third auction continued. Apart from the heaven and earth fruit, Lin Feng wasn't interested in the other treasures in the third auction. Even if many of the treasures were needed by 8-star experts, Lin Feng's current strength and vision were too high. In other words, he was picky. Ordinary treasures were not pleasing to his eyes. As for the use of the heaven and earth fruit, Lin Feng naturally knew what Yin Fa when Xian knew. But so what? Lin Feng wasn't sure of money. Anyway, every heaven and earth fruit had its own unique effects. There must be a reason why it was expensive. For example, the Dragon Eye Taro was worth 57 million void crystals, which was already considered the best in the third auction. However, the Dragon Eye Taro's enhancement to the body was actually very ordinary. At most, it was comparable to the heaven and earth fruit that was specially used to strengthen the body with 10 million void crystals. Why was it expensive? Because it had other functions. Some heaven and earth fruits could strengthen the bloodline. Some could enhance the vitality of cells. Some could improve the toughness of the skin. And some could increase the sensitivity of the heaven and earth origin. For Lin Feng, as long as it was beneficial to the body, even if the benefits were insignificant, it was better than nothing. When he left the Origin Awakened continent in the future, the void crystals wouldn't be of much use. Although they could be turned into space energy, they were useful to other experts, but to Lin Feng, they were useless. The black vortex could absorb them on its own. Big Brother Lin, the fourth auction is about to begin. Mei turned her head and said excitedly. The third auction slowly came to an end, and the highest transaction was no more than 100 million, so Lin Feng wasn't very interested. The beginning of the fourth auction was the real main theme of the auction. The previous auctions were just a warm-up. In the fourth auction, the starting price of each auction item was 100 million void crystals. As for the finale, it was estimated to be more than 1 billion void crystals. I believe everyone has been looking forward to it for a long time, so I won't keep everyone in suspense. On the stage, Qian Yueyin smiled sweetly, her slender eyebrows slightly raised, and her sexy red lips parted slightly. Next, the first treasure of the fourth auction. At the same time, it is also one of the 5 finale treasures of this auction. Qian Yueyin's beautiful eyes swept over it and smiled slightly. The key to the Void Gate. Chapter 1901. It's finally here. Lin Feng stood up slowly. After waiting for a long time, it was finally time for the first auction item. The finale treasures referred to treasures valued at more than 1 billion void crystals. Generally speaking, there would be at least 1 or 2 items in each auction, and at most, no more than 5. This time, there were 5 finale treasures, all of which were mid-level. Generally speaking, as long as there were more than 3 finale treasures, the first one would be auctioned at the beginning of the fourth round to bring up the atmosphere. As for the other finale treasures, they would be auctioned at the end. 5 finale treasures, one more than the previous auction, Mistcloud said. There should be 4 keys to the Void Gate, Lin Feng said. Mistcloud nodded. Judging from the auctions in the past 1,000 years, that should be the case. There weren't many treasures valued at more than 1 billion, which was already equivalent to the price of an excellent true treasure. Elite true treasures wouldn't exceed 300 million void crystals at most, and the most outrageous premium would only be close to 500 million. Even in an auction held once every 10,000 years, there would only be 2 or 3 treasures valued at more than 1 billion. Not to mention this auction held once every 100 years. In the past 1,000 years, the finale treasures were basically the keys to the Void Gate. Every 100 years, there would at most be 1 non-key treasure valued at more than 1 billion. Big Brother Lin, are you going to get the first one? Mei Yin asked. Yes. Lin Feng nodded. But the first one's price is usually higher, Mei Yin said. As the saying goes, strike first and gain the upper hand. Everyone has the same idea. Mistcloud stroked his beard and said, in the last few auctions, there will be fewer people bidding, and the price will often be lower, but that's not necessarily the case. Lin Feng nodded. No one could be sure about the auction. However, it didn't matter to him if there was an extra 1 or 200 million. He was just afraid that something would go wrong. If he didn't get the first key, and if he didn't get the second key, it would be troublesome. Lin Feng was determined to get the key to the Void Gate. At this moment, I believe everyone has a general understanding of the key to the Void Gate, so I won't go into details. Qian Yueyin smiled charmingly, adding to the atmosphere and completely hyping up the bidding. In this regard, Qian Yueyin was indeed worthy of being the only Emperor-level auctioneer in the Azure Dragon auction house. At this time, the crowd in the venue was in an uproar. Many pairs of eyes stared at the only huge key on the stage. The key to the Void Gate. This was the only way to enter the Void Turbulence. Every key had a sky-high price. Now then, I declare, the auction begins. Following Biyue Yan's melodious voice that sounded like the sounds of nature, the bidding price in the auction hall jumped up rapidly. At this time, Lin Feng was already standing beside Mei Yin. He looked down and did not make a bid for the time being. Now that there was a huge fluctuation, one price followed by another, there was no need to waste time. At the very top, the guests in the private rooms did not make a move either. They were all waiting. They would wait for the price to stabilize before making their move. At the start of the auction, they would only fight for a short period of time, so there was no need for that. 900 million void crystals, 950 million void crystals, 1 billion void crystals. The first key to the Void Gate was sold for 1 billion void crystals, but now it was naturally far more than that. In the auction 100 years ago, the final price of the 89th key to the Void Gate was 1 billion void crystals. When Bua Yin reported this price, the venue quieted down. This was already the highest price for the Void Gate key, and also the highest price for all 90 keys in the auction. Once this price was reported, it directly eliminated 99% of the bidders who exceeded it. After all, if a cultivator could buy a key with more than 1 billion void crystals, they would have done so 100 years ago. However, in just a moment, 11 billion void crystals. Bua Yin's beautiful eyes flickered as she reported the new price with a smile. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples, and in just a moment, the price was immediately refreshed. 12 billion void crystals. 13 billion void crystals. 14 billion void crystals. Each increase in price was 10 million void crystals. The bidding was very tense, and everyone was holding their breaths, not wanting to fall behind. 15 billion void crystals. Bua Yin reported the final price with a smile, causing an uproar in the venue. This price was not much different from the previous price estimate. Mei Yin. Lin Feng finally spoke. Mei Yin looked back at Lin Feng. Increase the price 2 billion void crystals. Lin Feng's voice was very calm, but it startled Mei Yin and Misty Cloud. This price was too high. Brother Lin Feng, there are still several Void Gate keys behind. We can actually wait a little longer. Misty Cloud persuaded. It's okay. Lin Feng looked at Mei Yin and nodded. Mei Yin nodded softly, her jade-like face flushed with excitement. For her, bidding 2 billion void crystals was an unprecedented experience, and it made her heart beat faster. 15 billion void crystals going once. 15 billion void crystals going twice. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? If not, the first Void Gate key will be swish. Mei Yin's eyes lit up in an instant, and then she showed a big smile, her beauty unparalleled. 2 billion void crystals. The VIP in seat 10 bids 2 billion void crystals. 2 billion void crystals going once. 2 billion void crystals going twice. 2 billion void crystals going thrice. Ding! A crisp bell rang, and Mei Yin showed a charming smile. Her beautiful crescent-shaped eyes fell straight on the third floor, and she said in high spirits, "Let us congratulate the VIP in seat 10 for purchasing the Void Gate key with 2 billion void crystals." There was a lot of noise. In the venue, everyone was in a heated discussion. They were both shocked by the new price of the 90th Void Gate key and curious about the identity of the VIP in seat 10. Being able to bid such a high price without batting an eyelid, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Including the previous 3 rounds, the VIP in seat 10 should have spent 2 billion void crystals, right? Yeah, he's too rich. He didn't even blink when bidding. Amazing, that's 2 billion void crystals. If I had 1/10 of that, I wouldn't have to worry about breaking my legs for the rest of my life. At the top of the auction hall, in the circular building space, with Beijing Dragon King as the leader, the head inspector could see everything clearly. Especially seat number 10, who was in the limelight, he was even more observant. If they had some doubts before, they were completely sure now. It must be him. Inspector Wang nodded. Have you found out his identity? Beijing Dragon King's beautiful eyes flickered as she asked softly. Only a little. It's very fragmented. Inspector, he said, and then handed the information to Beijing Dragon King. The latter quickly glanced through it. Her slender eyebrows frowned slightly, and her crystal-red lips pursed. Just as Inspector, he said, there was very little information about Lin Feng. Oh, suddenly, Beijing Dragon King's eyes lit up as she found something. The most recent teleportation was from the Heaven Realm City directly to the Extreme Dragon Sky City, Destiny Realm. Beijing Dragon King's beautiful eyes suddenly widened, and her face turned pale. Could it be that he is the human who slaughtered the Destiny race and turned the Destiny Realm upside down? Chapter 1902. She was a 9-star expert and the leader of the Azure Dragon Auction House. Although Bai Jing Dragon King's strength was ordinary and ranked last on the Origin Awakening list, she did not lack other abilities. Without her at the helm, the Azure Dragon Auction House would not have developed to this stage. Some 7-star and 8-star experts might not know what had happened in the Destiny domain. But how could a 9-star expert not know? After all, this was a major event in the entire Origin Awakening continent. The Destiny race had always been arrogant and looked down on other races and forces. Now, they had suffered a huge loss. The entire Destiny domain was shaken. If it's really him, then everything makes sense. Bai Jing Dragon King exclaimed softly, suddenly enlightened. He must have gotten the 1,000 ordinary treasures from the Destiny race. I didn't expect the arrogant Destiny race to meet their nemesis, a martial artist who has a way to deal with the death spiritual shock. Bai Jing Dragon King's lips curled up. She found it unbelievable. Previously, she had been spreading rumors and was skeptical. Even if it was true, she was afraid that it was 30% true and 70% false. But now she was sure. Bai Jing Dragon King's beautiful eyes flashed as she looked at the figure in Hall 10 through the opaque glass. She did not care about the treasures. Even if the Heavenly Tea Pavilion had the upper hand, it did not matter. She only wanted to know one thing, or rather a way, how to deal with the Destiny race. If we can learn the way to deal with the Destiny race from him, the Azure Dragon Auction House will have hope of rising. Bai Jing Dragon King was ambitious. Her biggest wish was not to surpass the Heavenly Tea Pavilion, but to become the leader of the 8 major forces. The richest, the most powerful force. As for the treasures, as long as they could deal with the Destiny race, would there be a lack of treasures? The Destiny race itself was a huge treasure trove. This matter must be kept a secret. Continue to watch here. Inform me immediately if anything happens. Bai Jing Dragon King gave a few instructions. Her figure flashed, and she jumped out of the top floor of the building. This was no small matter. She had to report to the other 2 Dragon Kings immediately, Gold Fury Dragon King and Dark Dream Dragon King. Seat number 10, Hall Seat. Big Brother Lin, we got it. Mei Yin clenched her fists excitedly and pounced on Lin Feng happily. She was very nervous just now because she had never handled such a large amount of money. That was 1.2 billion void crystals. Her entire net worth did not even amount to 100 million space crystals. Yes, Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Sorry to trouble you, Mei Yin. It's nothing. Having received Lin Feng's praise, Mei Yin was unable to contain her joy. Her little face was flushed, and her skin was as white as snow in the spring. It was sparkling and translucent, making her look extremely beautiful. Brother Lin Feng is really generous, Misty Cloud said with a smile, unable to hide the shock in his eyes. Although he knew that Lin Feng was very rich. After all, to be able to participate in the finale auction, the minimum requirement was 1 billion void crystals. He did not expect Lin Feng to be so rich that he had already spent nearly 2 billion void crystals. One had to know that some poor 9-star experts might not even have that much money. However, 1.2 billion void crystals is a bit of a premium. In fact, 1.16 billion void crystals is almost enough to buy it. Misty Cloud said, the guests in the private rooms above are all watching and have not made any bids. It's all right. Lin Feng smiled. Spend an extra 40 million to buy peace of mind. It would be too nervous to compete at the end of the auction. What's more, 1.2 billion void crystals to buy a key was within the budget. Generous. Misty Cloud smiled bitterly. He did not care about 40 million void crystals. One had to know that it was enough to buy a poor elite true treasure. He was also an 8-star expert, but compared to Lin Feng, far from it. Ah, Mei Yin suddenly shouted, and Lin Feng could not help but look over. Brother Lin, there are heaven and earth fruits again. Do we still want to buy them? Mei Yin asked. The heaven and earth fruits in the 4th round were even rarer and more valuable, but the estimated value was more than 100 million void crystals. It could be said to be the top heaven and earth fruits in the entire Origin Awakened continent. Generally, they could only be found in the deepest part of the three perilous lands. For example, the dew essence. Of course, Lin Feng smiled and said, "Buy as many as you have." Misty Cloud's mouth twitched slightly as he looked at Lin Feng in shock. After a long time, he said, "Brother Lin Feng, how much money do you have?" "It's enough," Lin Feng said. They looked at each other and smiled. Lin Feng did not lie to Misty Cloud. Indeed, the money he had was just enough. Compared to the previous 3 rounds, the 4th round of the auction was much faster. After all, there were not many treasures valued more than 100 million void crystals, and the preparation time was not long, only 100 years. Even if the Azure Dragon auction house tried their best, there were only dozens of treasures. Not long after, it was shared by the VIPs in the 18 private rooms. Among them, the 2nd, 3rd, and 7th VIP rooms bought the most treasures, followed by Lin Feng in the 10th VIP room. Well, the auction has come to an end. Ye Yin would like to thank everyone for their support. Qin Yueyin showed a charming smile and leaned over slightly, revealing a looming cleavage. Her sexy appearance made the men's hearts beat faster and their cheeks blushed. She was definitely a seductress who could charm people to death. Next up is the final 4 treasures of the finale. As for which 4 they are, Qin Yueyin smiled mischievously. "Let me keep you guessing. I believe everyone is already familiar with the first treasure." A light flashed in Qin Yueyin's hand, and the key to the void gate appeared, the 91st key and the second last key in this auction. There was an uproar. Lin Feng was also slightly surprised. In other words, among the remaining 4 treasures, 2 of them were not keys to the chaotic void, but they were super treasures valued more than 1 billion. Interesting. Lin Feng smiled. He also wanted to see what kind of treasure could be valued more than 1 billion. It was impossible for it to be an outstanding treasure. After all, no one would sell such a treasure. What about the others? Maybe it will be useful to me. Lin Feng was looking forward to it. In the 3rd VIP room, the Blue Dragon auction house is hiding a treasure from us. Yin Fa when Xin frowned slightly, obviously unhappy. With his status, he was indeed unhappy to be teased like this. After all, young master belongs to Ziming City and is close to Heavenly Ming Pavilion. Naturally, there will be an invisible barrier between you and the Azure Dragon auction house. Old Sui said, "It's normal for them to keep us guessing. No wonder so many big shots came this time." Old Sui suddenly realized, based on the previous auctions, even if they were not in the 1st VIP room, they would be in the 2nd VIP room. However, this time, they could only sit in the 3rd VIP room. Moreover, they did not know the identity of the big shot in the 1st VIP room. Humph, it's just knowing the news in advance. What's the use? Yin Fa when Xin said with disdain, "Since it's an auction, the highest bidder wins. I don't care what the last treasure is. In the end, it must be me." Yin Fa when Xin. Chapter 1903. 5 finale treasures. However, there were only 3 keys. This news was really sudden, causing the cultivators who had won the Void Gate key to suddenly become nervous. After all, based on the current situation, the opening of the Void Gate was imminent, and it was only a matter of a few hundred years. Generally speaking, each Void Gate key was expensive from the beginning to the end, while the middle was cheap. The first key had the most people competing for it, while the last key was the fiercest, so the price would often be higher. The middle key would be cheaper by about 100 million void crystals, but the last time, the bidders had a tacit understanding with each other, so the price was almost 200 million void crystals cheaper. After all, there were not many forces that could take out 1 billion void crystals at once. But this time it was different. 3 keys and 4 keys. Although there was only a difference of 1 key, it was a huge difference. Amazing. Lin Feng looked at Qian Yueyin standing on the stage. This beautiful woman had inadvertently raised the price, silently moistening the items. As an auctioneer, her realm was quite high. At this time, the auction price of the 2nd Void Gate key had risen, quickly exceeding 1 billion void crystals, and showed no signs of stopping. 1. 1 billion void crystals 11. 5 billion void crystals 1. 2 billion void crystals. As the several local tyrants in the top floor boxes began to compete, the auction price rose sharply, causing Mei Yin and Misty Cloud, who were next to Lin Feng, to be stunned speechless. They thought that Lin Feng had made a loss as 1. 2 billion void crystals, which was 100 million void crystals more expensive than the previous 89th key. But now, they discovered that Lin Feng's 1. 2 billion void crystals had been a wise choice. 1. 35 billion void crystals going once. 1. 35 billion void crystals going twice. 1. 35 billion void crystals going thrice. Congratulations to Emperor Grade VIP number 7 for purchasing the Void Gate key with 1. 35 billion void crystals. As Qian Yuyan's joyful voice sounded, the entire auction hall went into an uproar, with exclamations and gasps coming one after another. No one expected the final price to be so high. It was 150 million void crystals more expensive than the first key. The price was higher than the previous one. Big Brother Lin, you are amazing. Mei Yin looked at Lin Feng with admiration in her eyes. How did you know that the price of the second Void Gate key would be so much higher? That's right, Brother Lin Feng. This move of yours to gain the upper hand by show of strength is truly brilliant. Misty Cloud Master sighed in amazement. The fight for the second key is no less than a great battle. Brother Lin Feng, you directly avoided it. Lin Feng smiled and did not explain further. Some things were just luck. Very soon, the third item, which was also the final key to the Void Gate, was auctioned off in a fierce battle. Its price was even more expensive than the second key to the Void Gate. 1. 38 billion void crystals. Another new record. I thought that I could buy it for 1. 35 billion space crystals, or even lower it by 10 million space crystals, but in the end, I held back during the second auction and ended up competing with it, Lin Feng said with a smile. The guests in Box 5 and Box 12 had already fought over the second key. One bid was 1. 33 billion void crystals, while the other bid was 1. 32 billion void crystals, but in the end, they did not compete with the guest in Room 7. All of them had ulterior motives and were meticulous in their calculations. In the end, they ended up spending too much money. The guest in Box 5 is probably furious, Misty Cloud Child said. If there is one more key, it must belong to the guest in Box 5, Mei Yin said. How can there be so many ifs? Misty Cloud Child sighed. If there were 4 keys, the price would definitely not be so high. In the end, it would be Box 5, Box 7, and Box 12 who had the strength to compete for it. Brother Lin Feng is still the best. You quietly took one and left the other 2 to be fought over by these 3 big shots. Lin Feng smiled. Sometimes, the more you want to save money, the more you spend. Mei Yin nodded thoughtfully. The next time we buy it will be 100 years later. No one knows what will happen in the next 100 years. Maybe there will be more keys, and it will be cheaper. Maybe there will be more people competing for it. Misty Cloud Child sighed. The price of the Void Gate's key had almost reached its peak. There is another possibility, Lin Feng said. What? Mei Yin asked curiously. Lin Feng smiled. The turbulent void will open in 100 years. Really, Big Brother Lin? Mei Yin's beautiful eyes widened, flashing with a bright luster. The possibility is not high. Misty Cloud Child pondered slightly. According to the king, there should be another 200 to 500 years before the turbulent void will open. I guessed. Lin Feng smiled. Strictly speaking, it wasn't a guess, but a sixth sense. However, this kind of thing was too mysterious, and he was not sure. The auction of the 2 Void Gate keys set off the climax of the auction. Although the lowest level cultivators were not qualified to buy it, seeing the treasures being auctioned with 100 million void crystals, the excitement was completely born from the heart, making their blood boil. Not to mention them. Mei Yan's face was flushed with excitement. This kind of top auction in Origin Awakened continent affected the hearts of every cultivator. Discussions and noises rose one after another in the auction hall, unable to calm down for a long time. Top floor, Box 3. It's about to start, young master. Old Sway reminded. Yin Fa1 Exon, who was dressed lightly but looked valiant, stood with his head held high, his white, jade-like neck raised high, like a proud prince, overlooking below. He naturally had the key to the turbulent void. It should be said that his father had more than one. Keys could be used repeatedly. The last time the turbulent void space opened, the experts who came out alive would definitely have a key with them. Sometimes there would be more. For example, they found a key in the turbulent void space, or they obtained a key from someone else. There are many possibilities. Yin Fa1 X-Science status was high, and it was easy for him to get a key. Moreover, with his financial resources, even if he bought a key, it would not cost much. The purpose of his visit this time was for the true treasure that was at the end of the auction, which was the next treasure. Void Broken Jade. Yin Fa1 X-Science's eyes lit up, landing on the big stage. At this time, the Emperor-level auctioneer, Qianyue Yin, had taken out an irregular, translucent white jade fragment and placed it in a carefully made glassware. Even through the glassware, one could feel the amazing space energy contained in this irregular jade fragment. Above this jade fragment, lines of lines seemed to contain the most fundamental mysteries of the universe, intertwining and connecting with each other, forming a strange pattern. Next up is the fourth item, which is also the second to last item. Qianyue Yin smiled, revealing two small dimples. Her slender crescent-like eyebrows slightly opened up and the corner of her mouth slightly raised. Her beauty was indescribable. The top treasure from the turbulent void, Void Broken Jade. Chapter 1904. Void Broken Jade comes from the turbulent void. This is a top-notch treasure that is no less valuable than an outstanding true treasure. It can only be found in the depths of the turbulent void. Qianyue Yan's unique voice sounded clearly and directly moved one's soul. When she was joking, she was like a naughty little sister. However, the current Qianyue Yan was mature and charming. She used the most sincere expression to describe this top-notch treasure between heaven and earth. It contains endless space energy. It contains the true meaning of endless space. It points directly to the Tao of space origin. This is a top-notch cultivation treasure. Perhaps it can't directly increase one's battle strength like an outstanding true treasure, but can help you cultivate faster and avoid many detours. Qianyue Yan's voice was still gently vibrating. The entire auction hall was silent. Following Qianyue Yan's voice, everyone stared at this strange treasure that they had never heard of before. Among them, Lin Feng was also included. Different from the distinguished guests in the top box, Lin Feng did not have the qualifications to know about the treasure in advance. Hence, this was the first time he saw this void broken jade. It was pure white and looked like jade or stone. Its irregular shape was as if it was directly pulled out from a complete flatboard. However, this was somewhat unrealistic. Even a 9-star expert would not be able to destroy this void broken jade. Its quality was far beyond the level of Origin Awakened Continent's power. It was very strange. It pointed to the Tao of space. Such a treasure was useful to every expert, especially 8-star and 9-star experts. In order to break through, the comprehension of space was an indispensable part. And with the void broken jade, it was undoubtedly twice the result with half the effort. So strange. Different from ordinary martial artists, Lin Feng was deeply attracted at first sight. This void broken jade had intertwined patterns and patterns that were fluctuating. Looking at it from afar, one could be immersed in it. The black vortex was constantly vibrating. It contained the strongest power between heaven and earth, or rather, the universe's rules. Simply put, it was what Qianyue Yin said, pointed to the Tao. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Almost without hesitation, he had already made a decision in his heart. Get it. No matter the price, he had to get this void broken jade. This was definitely a top-tier treasure that was not inferior to an excellent true treasure. It might even be more useful. After all, outstanding true treasures could only be used for a short period of time, but this void broken jade could be used for a long time. The person who auctioned it must have comprehended a reincarnation cycle. From the last chaotic void to this chaotic void, he hasn't made any progress so far. That's why he sold it. Lin Feng thought. It was impossible to fully comprehend such a treasure, because when he truly comprehended it, the level of his strength was no longer something that the Origin Awakening continent could fuse with. It was very powerful, but at the same time, it had many flaws. Firstly, it wasn't complete, and this caused it to be extremely difficult to comprehend. It was like a secret technique that only had the first half or even a tenth of it. So comprehending the complete secret technique from it was naturally more difficult than ascending to the heavens. Secondly, it was only used for cultivation and could not directly increase one's combat strength. The person who auctioned this treasure was at least an 8-star expert, and he must have the key to the Void Gate. In other words, he would definitely enter the turbulent void this time. Instead of carrying a useless treasure, it was better to take it out and exchange it for some void crystals to buy other useful treasures. Every bit of combat strength he could improve was better than nothing. When he entered the turbulent void, his life-saving ability would be a little stronger, and his strength would also be a little stronger. Who knew? He might be able to obtain better treasures. The auction price of the Void-Broken Jade shouldn't be too high. It's higher than the key to the Void Gate, but it won't exceed an excellent true treasure. Lin Feng knew very well that the value of the Void-Broken Jade should be lower than an excellent true treasure, and now it would be even lower. Good steel should be used on the blade. At this critical juncture, the rich experts would buy other treasures that could directly increase their combat strength instead of this. At this time, under the clear voice of Qian Yueyan, the bidding had already begun in an orderly manner. The starting price was already over 1 billion void crystals. The entire auction hall was extremely quiet, and every bid was clearly heard. Everyone held their breaths as they stared at the noble void-broken jade on the stage, looking at the beautiful Qian Yueyan. Number 9, Emperor Level VIP, bids 1. 5 billion void crystals. Number 11, Emperor Level VIP, bids 1. 7 billion void crystals. Number 3, Emperor Level VIP, bids 2 billion void crystals. Qian Yueyan's voice suddenly became louder with a hint of surprise. The next moment, her beautiful eyes widened, flashing a crystal luster, and she smiled charmingly. Number 2, Emperor Level VIP, bids 2. 2 billion void crystals. Number 4, Emperor Level VIP, bids 2. 3 billion void crystals. The price continued to rise. Basically, except for the VIPs and the top floor boxes, no one else would bid. They were not qualified and, at the same time, did not have the financial resources. Next to Lin Feng, Mei Yin and Misty Cloud were like everyone else, waiting for the final result to come out. They were waiting to see who would win this strange void-broken jade. The auction gradually entered the middle and end. One by one, the VIPs in the boxes stopped bidding. The price had increased again and again, and it was beyond what they could afford. Right now, the price had reached 5 billion void crystals. Basically, it was a competition between the guests in private rooms 2, 3, and 4. It was a competition to see whose hands were tougher and whose wallet was fatter. The starting price of an outstanding true treasure is between 300 million and 3 billion. In the current environment, all true treasures are overpriced. The price of an outstanding true treasure is as low as 1 billion and as high as 5 billion. The void-broken jade is about 3 billion void crystals. Lin Feng's gaze landed below. Taking the controller, a light flashed in his eyes, and then he pressed the button. Number 3, Emperor Level VIP, bids 2. 65 billion. Number 4, Emperor Level VIP, bids 2. 68 billion. Number 2, Emperor Level VIP, bids 2. 7 billion. Qian Yueyan reported the numbers one by one, with a professional smile on her face. Her original estimated price was 5 billion void crystals, and now that she had easily reached it, she was naturally happy. After all, the more she bid, the more that Song Dragon Auction House would earn, and her reward would be more. At this moment, whoosh, Qian Yan's beautiful eyes suddenly shrank and then widened, revealing a look of surprise. Number 10, bid 3 billion. Qian Yan's voice was trembling as she excitedly reported. In an instant, the entire venue gasped as everyone was dumbfounded. 3 billion void crystals. That was a full 3 billion void crystals. Appalling. And the one who bid was not the guest in the box on the top floor, but the guest in the box seat on the third floor, the guest in seat 10, who was in the limelight in this big auction. No one would have thought that he would also participate in the fight for the final treasure. Moreover, it was from 7 billion void crystals to 3 billion void crystals. The entire venue was in extreme shock. Chapter 1905. In Box 2. They were all tall dragon men with horns on their heads and scaly tails behind them. This was not their true form. Once they revealed their true form, it would be too inconvenient. The Void Dragon Clan. They were as famous as the Destiny Clan, Winged Clan, Song Demon Clan, and the Milky Way Human Clan. They were one of the 5 major clans and were at the top of the pyramid in the Origin Awakening continent. King, do you want to continue bidding? No, our bottom line is 8 billion void crystals. 3 billion void crystals is too much. Blackbeard Dragon King is right. If we buy this void broken jade, we won't be able to bid for the last item. Box number 4 also gave up. Expensive. Give up. It's not worth it to buy it now. Although the void broken jade was good, it was a long-term treasure after all. Under normal circumstances, they might compete for it, but now that the turbulent void was about to open, it was unwise to spend 3 billion void crystals to compete for it. Good steel should be used on the edge of a blade. Maybe they could get better treasures in the turbulent void this time. Only Yin Fa when XN, who was in private room 3, was livid. The 2-peak 8-star demon clan experts behind him could feel their young master's anger. Old Sway also frowned. Every treasure had an appropriate price. Previously, they had consulted professional analysts and appraisers about the price of the void broken jade. Combined with the current situation, the price should be between 4 billion and 6 billion void crystals. The final price depended on the auction environment at that time. Generally, the price would not exceed 7 billion void crystals, at most 8 billion void crystals. It was not worth it if it exceeded that. I'm not afraid of you. Yin Fa Wen's heart lit up. He was about to press the button, but an invisible force suddenly held him back, making it difficult for him to press the button. Old Sway. Yin Fa Wen Xin turned around and stared. It's too expensive, young master. Old Sway shook his head. Yin Fa Wen Xion's eyes were bloodshot. Let go, I want to continue bidding. Young master, it's exceeded our base price by 200 million void crystals. Old Sway advised, although the void broken jade is rare, the turbulent void is about to open. It's very likely that new void broken jade will be found. It's not too late to buy it then. Yin Fa Wen Xin gritted his teeth and said, It's just 200 million void crystals. I don't want to lose. He sighed softly. His young master was good at everything, but his temper was a little stubborn. He didn't want to admit defeat, and he had a strong ego. Young master, there's still the last item to be auctioned. It must be the most valuable item at the end. Since the Tsang Dragon Auction House has kept this secret from us, it must be something good. The old man quickly changed the topic. If young master insists on snatching the void-broken jade, then the guest in seat 10 will definitely not be able to beat us. But if we spend so many space crystals, we definitely won't be able to bid for the last treasure. Young master, you see, the guest in box 1 hasn't made a move since the beginning. It's enough to prove that the last treasure is much more valuable than the void-broken jade. Yin Fa Wen Xin frowned and fell into deep thought. He didn't really desire the void-broken jade. After all, it wasn't something that could directly increase one's battle prowess. According to Old Sway, the previous owner of the void-broken jade was a 9-star warrior. Even after going through a reincarnation cycle, he still couldn't comprehend its secrets. If he wanted to comprehend it, it would definitely be more difficult than ascending to the sky. Yin Fa Wen Xin also knew that the void-broken jade's price was too high and it wasn't worth bidding for anymore. He just Couldn't take it lying down. At this moment, 3 billion going twice. 3 billion going thrice. Congratulations to the guest in box 10 for buying this top-grade treasure, the Void Broken Jade, for 3 billion space crystals. Qian Yin smiled like a flower and took the lead in applauding. In an instant, the entire auction hall was filled with thunderous applause. Everyone's eyes were focused on box 10. Mayan had already retracted her head in shock. Including Misty Cloud, the two stared at Lin Feng as if they were looking at a monster. What's wrong? Lin Feng smiled. Brother Lin Feng, you really don't show off. 3 billion space crystals. Misty Cloud sighed again and again. Lin Feng had given him too much stimulation. He had spent nearly 1 billion space crystals to buy the heaven and earth fruit and then bought the key to the Void Gate. Now, he even bought the Void Broken Jade. The big shots in the top floor box were all knocked out by him with space crystals. Big Brother Lin, how did you get so much money? Mayan asked in a daze. I earned it. Lin Feng smiled and spread out his hands. Now I'm really poor. This was the truth. After buying a bunch of heaven and earth fruits and 2 treasures worth for 2 billion space crystals, he had paid all the money he got from selling 1,000 ordinary supreme treasures. But it was still not enough. He had to dig out all his savings. While they were talking, swish, a white figure suddenly appeared without any warning. Mayan and Misty Cloud were both startled. Only Lin Feng's expression remained calm as he looked over with a faint smile. Sit. Lin Feng made a gesture of invitation and smiled. The newcomer had beautiful black hair like a waterfall. Under the black hair was a flawless face, like a work of art, sacred and lustrous. Under the white robe was an exquisite and perfect figure. Her skin was as white as snow and as white as jade. In front of her chest was the logo of the Azure Dragon Auction House. Her identity was obvious. Dragon King Bai Jing. Misty Cloud's expression changed as he bowed. The newcomer was one of the 3 Dragon Kings of the Azure Dragon Auction House. She was responsible for the affairs of the Azure Dragon Auction House and was one of the few female experts on the Origin Awakening list. Many experts saw her as their dream lover. You're welcome. Dragon King Bai Jing's expression was indifferent as she looked straight at Lin Feng. I'm the person in charge of the Azure Dragon Auction House. You can call me Dragon King Bai Jing. According to the usual practice, we must re-verify your assets to see if you have the ability to afford all the treasures you bid before. The total is 197. 8 billion. Lin Feng smiled. He was not surprised. After all, he had just arrived and his identity was only a gold badge. He had not reached the highest level. If he had only bid 2 billion space crystals, the Azure Dragon Auction House would not have asked. But now he had won one of the last 2 treasures. Let's count it. Lin Feng waved his hand. In an instant, piles of space crystals were taken out from his interspatial ring and piled up in the middle. Mei Yin and Misty Cloud stared with their eyes wide open. A mountain of space crystals. It was a huge amount of space crystals that exceeded 5 billion. Even Misty Cloud, who had a high position in the Heavenly Star Continent, had never seen such a large amount of space crystals. Dragon King Bai Jing's expression was still calm. Sorry to disturb you. Dragon King Bai Jing nodded and turned to leave. Dragon King Bai Jing, you don't want to leave like this, right? Lin Feng's voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 1906. Bai Jing Dragon King stopped in her tracks and raised her eyebrows slightly. Who was she? The Azure Dragon Auction Hall's leader. A famous 9-star powerhouse on the Origin Awakening list. Which expert would not be respectful when they saw her? Even those ranked higher than her on the Origin Awakening list would be courteous to her. However, this little fellow was not courteous to her at all. However, this was an auction hall, and she was the auction hall's leader. Turning around, Bai Jing Dragon King's eyes lit up as she stared at Lin Feng. Perhaps you won't be happy, but this is the Azure Dragon Auction Hall's rule. In order to protect the rights of other VIPs, I would do the same for anyone else. Lin Feng smiled. That's not what I'm talking about. Bai Jing Dragon King was slightly stunned. Lin Feng pointed to the center of the auction hall. Just now, Qin Yin had announced the start of the final auction, and the competition was fierce. Because of Beijing Dragon King's disturbance, I didn't hear the introduction of the final auction item. Now, I don't know if I should bid or not. Lin Feng shrugged. What? Misty Cloud and Mei Yin looked at Lin Feng in shock. He still wanted to bid. He still had money? Beijing Dragon King also had the same expression. Her beautiful face revealed a rare, shocked expression as she stared at Lin Feng. You still have money? Lin Feng smiled. What do you think? Beijing Dragon King was speechless. She could not ask Lin Feng to take out all of his wealth. That would be against the rules. Moreover, she had already done this once, so if she did it again, she would really be going overboard and offending Lin Feng. Moreover, Lin Feng had already taken out a total of 2 billion void crystals before, which was enough to prove his financial strength. So what do you want? Beijing Dragon King frowned, slightly displeased. Nothing, Lin Feng directly said. Beijing Dragon King is also following the rules. Everyone follows the rules, so there won't be so many disputes. Very good. However, since Dragon Queen Beijing interrupted me and caused me to miss the introduction of the final treasure, then shouldn't you explain it to me? Isn't that fair? Lin Feng smiled and looked at Beijing Dragon King. That was right. He was deliberately making things difficult for Beijing Dragon King. With Lin Feng's soul spirit level and heaven's cultivation realm, it was too easy for him to multitask. How could he not have heard Qin Yan's explanation? However, since Beijing Dragon Queen had made things difficult for him earlier, he had to return the favor. If the void-broken jade was bought by one of the VIPs in the top floor, would Beijing Dragon King have to go and authenticate that person's asset? What a joke. Misty Cloud's hair stood on end as he watched from the side. He kept winking at Lin Feng, hinting for him to take a step back. That was the Beijing Dragon King. Good, very good. Sorry for disturbing you. Beijing Dragon King was so angry that she laughed, revealing a cold smile. Her twin peaks stood proudly as she stared at Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and did not care at all. He looked down and said, "You can introduce now." Beijing Dragon King's eyes wanted to kill Lin Feng. At this moment, she stood behind Lin Feng like a servant. The attendants in the booth all knelt on the ground, not daring to raise their heads. What a joke. This was the boss of their boss. Beijing Dragon King, who is usually hard to meet, was a transcendent existence on the Origin Awakening list, the boss behind the Azure Dragon Auction House. But now, she was being ordered around like a servant. This human youth is too daring. The attendants were sweating, their hearts beating like drums. Lin Feng did not care at all. He did not even look at Beijing Dragon King. Beijing Dragon King sighed and pursed her red lips. Her eyes were like lightning as she stared at Lin Feng. The final treasure is called the Nightmare Demon Blood Crystal. It was picked up by someone in the Destiny domain 1 year ago. Oh, Lin Feng was slightly surprised. Destiny domain? There was a rumor that the Destiny domain, the first of the 3 most dangerous lands, was turned upside down by an expert. The Destiny race suffered heavy casualties. Even the 9-star Destiny race's expert was severely injured. Beijing Dragon King glanced at Lin Feng and saw that his expression did not change. She frowned. After that, the Destiny race went crazy. A large number of people rushed out of the Destiny domain to chase after that expert. However, they have not found anything yet. After that, the Heavenly Fate race, who were greatly provoked, started a massacre. They started an intense battle with the experts who were still in the Heavenly Fate realm. Since even the 9-star experts of the Heavenly Fate race participated in the battle, all the major forces suffered disastrous losses. Many experts escaped, but many also died in the Destiny world. This Nightmare Demon Blood Crystal was picked up by one of the experts in the Destiny domain. If I am not wrong, it should belong to Thorn. Thorn, the strongest assassin organization. Lin Feng nodded. It seemed that the Destiny race was really angered by him. They did not care about the consequences and started a massacre. This was completely offending the 8 major forces. It was not wise. If the 8 major forces worked together, the Destiny race would suffer. Can you get to the point? What is the use of this nightmare demon blood crystal? Lin Feng asked. Bai Jing Dragon King's face turned red. She was so angry that her teeth itched. She stared at Lin Feng and said, "The nightmare demon blood crystal comes from the netherworld race's hell of the three most dangerous lands. The nightmare demon is extremely rare. It takes tens of thousands of eras for one to form. Moreover, it might not grow to its peak. Once the nightmare demon grows to its peak, a nightmare demon blood crystal will be born in its body. This is where all its essence is. It is similar to our human soul, but it is different. Because all of the nightmare demon's life activities depend on the nightmare demon blood crystal. It can be said that this is everything to it." Lin Feng nodded. The universe was boundless. All kinds of life could exist. The nightmare demon blood crystal is of the dark demon type. It has three main uses. First, strengthen the darkness type bloodline, or separate it and form a Wu-E devil avatar. Second, increase the dark element talent, especially the dark demon Dao. It not only increases the origin power and dark element talent. As long as the nightmare demon blood crystal is refined, the dark demon Dao will reach perfection. Third, side effects. Only by withstanding the powerful energy of the nightmare demon blood crystal and not being devoured can the first two effects be realized. Lin Feng nodded. When Qian Yueyin introduced it, he had also heard about it. However, Beijing Dragon Queen's explanation was much more detailed and direct. After all, she was a 9-star martial artist. She had a much higher standard than ordinary martial artists when it came to the nature of treasures. Furthermore, Bian Yueyan's explanation of the third function was completely vague and vague. This was normal. As an emperor rank auctioneer, she had no reason to talk about the weakness of this treasure and lower the price. However, it was very powerful. The nightmare demon blood crystal was extremely powerful. Chapter 1907. The first use of the nightmare blood crystal was already heaven-defying. Strengthening bloodline. One had to know that heaven and earth fruits that could enhance bloodline were extremely rare. Not to mention, the nightmare blood crystal's bloodline strengthening effect would definitely be shocking. This was a blood crystal formed by the nightmare blood crystal, which took tens of thousands of eras to form once it reached its peak. Forming a clone and strengthening bloodline were two choices. To him, it wasn't very useful, but to other experts, it was equivalent to creating an 8-star or even 9-star expert. According to Qian Yueyin, the nightmare blood crystal was a 7-star expert when it reached its peak. With a bit of training, it would become an 8-star expert. Even if it broke through to become a 9-star expert, the possibility was very high. After all, the nightmare blood crystal's path of darkness was definitely at the great perfection level. Its combat strength was also stronger than demon experts of the same level. After all, it was a naturally powerful life form. A 9-star clone, how terrifying was that? In terms of combat strength, it had already far exceeded the limit of the Black Region Master. As for the second use, it was even more heaven-defying. After refining, the path of darkness would directly reach the great perfection level. That was the great perfection level, the limit of one's path of origin. The only flaw was that it wasn't really a flaw. After all, the path of darkness was originally filled with ruthlessness and killing aura, and it had a powerful backlash. Including treasures, it was the same. Any path of darkness would definitely harm oneself. However, as long as one could overcome it, its power would surpass that of the other 5 paths of darkness. One drink, one peck, one lose, one gain. The backlash of the nightmare blood crystal is very strong. Unless it's a 9-star expert, it's very dangerous. Bai Jing Dragon King looked at Lin Feng and said directly, "That's why the expert who assassinated didn't refine the nightmare blood crystal. He wanted to wait until his strength reached the 9-star level before refining it, but he didn't want to die in the Destiny realm. If he could become a 9-star expert and refine the nightmare blood crystal, with his combat strength and experience, he would definitely become a big shot in the top 50 of the Origin Awakening list." Lin Feng sighed. Yes, it was a pity most of the time. A future powerhouse had fallen just like that. Speaking of which, it's related to me. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. He didn't feel guilty in his heart. Martial artists were originally walking on the edge of the blade. Life and death was just a matter of an instant. If he wanted to become stronger, he would have to pay a price. He would have to go through many trials and tribulations. What's the estimated price? Lin Feng turned his head and met Bai Jing's eyes. 5 billion void crystals. Bai Jing Dragon King said resolutely. She stared at Lin Feng as if she wanted to see something in Lin Feng's eyes. However, Bai Jing Dragon King was disappointed. If it had been someone else, they might not have been able to withstand her lightning-like stare. But who was Lin Feng? Even a Heaven's Mandate race, whose soul power was at the top of Origin Awakened Continent, could not do anything to Lin Feng. In terms of a degree of soul, Lin Feng was absolutely not inferior to any 9-star powerhouse in Origin Awakened Continent. So many, Lin Feng was slightly surprised. Worth it, the White Dragon King said directly. Many treasures cannot be measured with money. The Nightmare Blood Crystal is one of them. Luckily, someone picked it up and sold it. Otherwise, White Dragon King sneered, even if there are 10 billion void crystals, no one will sell it. It's just like an outstanding true treasure. Lin Feng nodded. When money reached a certain value, it was just a number. He looked down. At this time, the bidding price had exceeded the final price of the void broken jades, 3 billion void crystals, reaching 5 billion void crystals, and it was still rising. 5 billion void crystals. Lin Feng was surprised. Number 3 Emperor Grade, VIP bids 7 billion void crystals. Number 2 Emperor Grade, VIP bids 8 billion void crystals. Number 5 Emperor Grade, VIP bids 9 billion void crystals. Number 1 Emperor Grade VIP bids 4 billion void crystals. The price continued to rise and refresh. Every bid directly hit the hearts of the cultivators present. 99% of them could not even take out a fraction. Compared to the real top powerhouses and forces of Origin Awakened Continent, they were too far behind. Only at this time could they truly feel the gap, not only in strength, but also in wealth. Lin Feng watched. The value of the Nightmare Blood Crystal was comparable to an outstanding true treasure, and it was different from the Void Broken Jade. The Nightmare Blood Crystal could directly increase one's battle power. Not to mention the bloodline strengthening, it could directly raise one's Dark Demon Dao to perfection. It was very difficult to reach perfection in one Origin Dao. Even 9-star experts usually only had one Dao of Origin that had reached the great perfection. Lin Feng himself had 12 Dao of Origin of light and darkness. All of them were close to the great perfection level, but none of them had reached the great perfection level. Thus it could be seen, an 8-star powerhouse refining the Nightmare Blood Crystal was likely to become a 9-star powerhouse. A 9-star powerhouse refining the Nightmare Blood Crystal and comprehending one more Origin Dao would increase their strength significantly. Although the Nightmare Blood Crystal had strong side effects, and it could even devour the owner, entering the void turbulence was dangerous, and there was only a slim chance of survival. Why not try? Compared to the side effects of the Nightmare Blood Crystal, its effect was too amazing. 5 billion void crystals, it's not certain. In a short time that Lin Feng observed, the price had increased from 4 billion void crystals to 5 billion void crystals, and there were still 5 rooms bidding. To him, the Nightmare Blood Crystal's effect was irreplaceable. It was more than 10 times more valuable than the Void Broken Jade. Once he refined the Nightmare Blood Crystal, his strength would increase from an ordinary 8-star to a peak 8-star, and his battle power would be close to an ordinary 9-star powerhouse. Back then, he was able to fight the Destiny Race's 9-star powerhouse to the death. His battle power was one factor, and the other factor was that the Destiny Race was restrained by him. Compared to a real 9-star powerhouse, especially a close combat one, he was still far behind. One of the reasons was the realm of Origin Dao. There was a huge difference between near perfection and perfection. Moreover, With his soul attainments and the 10,000 origin mustard stone, he was not afraid of the nightmare blood crystal's backlash at all. He could completely ignore the side effects. How could he miss such a treasure? Lin Feng smiled. Under the gaze of the White Dragon King, Misty Cloud and Mei Yin calmly pressed the red button under their shocked gazes. Beep! On the auction stage, Qian Yueyin had completely entered a state of excitement. Her chest was heaving up and down, and her smile was like a flower. She kept calling out new bids, and her mood was high, causing all the cultivators in the auction house to exclaim one after another. Every bid was continuous, making people's blood boil. Number 1 Emperor-level VIP bids for 7 billion void crystals. Number 3 Emperor-level VIP bids for 75 billion void crystals. Number 10 guest bids 5 billion void crystals. Qian Yueyin was stunned for a moment before her emotions completely exploded. Her clear voice resounded throughout the auction hall, and her face was flushed with excitement. In all her auction history, this was considered a high price. The most shocking thing was that the person who offered this price was not a big-shot expert from the top box, but an unknown guest from seat number 10. It was him again. Chapter 1908. The guest in the 10th seat. The legendary and mysterious guest in the 10th seat. It was just a gold medal, not a top-grade diamond medal. But he could be seen in every auction. He would always abruptly step in and bid for treasures under the watchful eyes of the crowd. After bidding for the void broken jade with 3 billion void crystals, he appeared again. The whole audience was shocked. 5 billion void crystals. It was fine if he did not make a move, but once he did, it was like thunder covering the sky and earth. The last auction's finale, the void broken jade, he only made a move once. 3 billion void crystals. Then he suppressed all the top auctioneers. This time it was the same again. The huge sum of 5 billion void crystals made everyone's heart heavy and breathless. When they heard this number, they trembled with fear. They had never seen such a large sum of money in their lives, let alone own or use it. This was the richest man in Origin Awakened continent. In the third box, Old Sway. Yin Fa when Xion's eyes were red, and he was furious. Didn't you say that after he bought the void broken jade, he wouldn't interfere with the last treasure? Why, he's here again. Say it. Old Sway's face turned red, and he was miserable. He was also providing advice to the young master based on his experience. How could an ordinary person have so much money? After buying one treasure after another, plus the 5 billion void crystals, this unknown guest in the 10th seat had paid a total of 10 billion void crystals. That was 10 billion void crystals. Except for the 5 major clans and the 8 major forces, no force could take out so much money. Even their Purple Star Pavilion would be a bit stretched to take out 10 billion void crystals at once. Only the 2 major forces, Heavenly Tea Pavilion and Azure Dragon Auction House, could afford it. This old man made a mistake in judgment. Please punish me, young master. Old Sway sighed in his heart. Encountering such an unconventional customer, he could be considered to have suffered a loss. Yin Fa when Xion snorted angrily and gritted his teeth. He was not really reprimanding Old Sway. He also knew that this matter had nothing to do with Old Sway, but there was a stifling feeling in his heart. Yin Fa one Xion, the pride of the Purple Star Starry Sky, had always been high and mighty. When had he ever been suppressed like this? Again and again and again. I don't believe it. Yin Fa when Xion's stubbornness flared up as he pressed the button again. He had already tolerated the auction of the void broken jade, but here, absolutely not. Let's see who can last until the end. Yin Fa when Xion's eyes burned with rage. On the auction stage, Qian Yueyin revealed a charming smile, adding to the atmosphere of the auction. The final auction was different from an ordinary auction. In an ordinary auction, each bid would only last for a few seconds, but the final auction would not last that long. It was very likely that there would be a pause of tens of seconds for a single bid. After all, this was an auction worth billions of void crystals, and each time the price was raised by tens of millions of void crystals. far exceeding that of an ordinary auction. At this time, it all depended on the auctioneer's skills. He had to maintain the lively atmosphere in the auction hall and not lose the nervous mood of the auction. This was not as simple as maintaining the silence. Since Qin Yueyan was able to become the only emperor-ranked auctioneer in the Azure Dragon auction house, her abilities in all aspects were naturally outstanding. Especially in this segment, her top-notch auctioneer abilities were displayed. Every frown, every smile, every interlude, the audience was sometimes filled with laughter, sometimes with nervous anticipation. Everyone waited for the new bid with a happy, yet nervous mood. 5. 1 billion void crystals. Emperor-ranked VIP number 3 bids 5. 1 billion void crystals. Qin Yueyan's surprised voice shouted, causing an uproar again. At this time, with Yin Fa when Xian's bid, the bidding that had paused for a moment began to climb again. Emperor-ranked VIP number 2 bids 5. 2 billion void crystals. Emperor-ranked VIP number 4 bids 5. 25 billion void crystals. Emperor-ranked VIP number 3 bids 5. 3 billion void crystals. Emperor-ranked VIP number 1 bids 5. 4 billion void crystals. Emperor-ranked VIP number 3. A round of bids set off the climax of this auction. The bid of 5 billion void crystals directly eliminated a bunch of bidders with insufficient financial resources, and after Yin Fa when Xian bid 5 billion void crystals, the powerhouse in box 4 also announced his withdrawal. Emperor-ranked VIP number 3 bids 6 billion void crystals. Emperor-ranked VIP number 3 bids 75 billion void crystals. Emperor-ranked VIP number 3 bids 8 billion void crystals. The powerhouse in box 1 and Yin Fa when Xian clashed fiercely. Unlike Yin Fa 1 Xian, the powerhouse in box 1 clearly knew all the treasures in this auction, and they did not bid for any of the previous treasures, including the void broken jade. They were here for the nightmare blood crystal. Their purpose was clear. Box 1 bids 6 billion void crystals. With Qin Yueyan's new bid, the entire venue was thunderous. It was a full 1 billion void crystals higher than the estimated price, showing the boldness of Box 1. They were determined to win. Third floor hall, seat number 10. Bai Jing Dragon King still had not left at this time. Although she had completed her task of being Lin Feng's commentator, the intensity of the auction attracted her attention. 6 billion void crystals. Dragon King, didn't you say 5 billion void crystals? Why is it so expensive all of a sudden? You are very unprofessional. Lin Feng turned around and said. Bai Jing Dragon King glared at Lin Feng and wanted to kick him. She was unprofessional? In the entire Origin Awakening continent, who dared to say that she, Bai Jing Dragon King, was unprofessional? I said before, it's an estimate. Bai Jing Dragon King suppressed her anger. There are many situations in an auction. This is not a fixed-price transaction in Heavenly Tea Pavilion. Moreover, the Nightmare Blood Crystal is worth 10 billion void crystals, not to mention 6 billion void crystals. This is a priceless treasure. Lin Feng nodded and looked at Bai Jing Dragon King's pale face. He could not help but laugh. Don't be angry. I'm just a layman. I'm just asking you because I don't understand, right? Layman my ass. No matter how good Bai Jing Dragon King's self-restraint was, she still wanted to hit him. Would a layman directly bid 2 billion void crystals to buy the Void Gate key at a low price before the other forces had a firm foothold? Would a layman directly bid 3 billion void crystals to break the psychological defenses of the other forces and buy the Void Broken Jade? Would a layman bid 5 billion void crystals to snatch the Nightmare Blood Crystal without batting an eye? If there were no other top VIPs in the previous auctions, he might have really bought the Nightmare Blood Crystal with 5 billion void crystals. Thinking of this, Bai Jing Dragon King snorted and felt a little strange. Why? She did not want this guy to buy the treasure. From the perspective of the person in charge of the auction house, such a mentality, no matter how she looked at it, it was a little abnormal. Bai Jing Dragon King glanced at Lin Feng. Why? The price is too high now, you can't bid. No. Lin Feng turned his head and looked at Bai Jing Dragon King. I'm just thinking about how much to raise the price. With that, under Bai Jing Dragon King's widened eyes, Lin Feng casually pressed the button. Hiss! Mei Yin and Misty Cloud on the side were also dumbfounded and shocked. It was already 6 billion void crystals, and he still wanted to raise it? Chapter 1909. In Box 3. Damn it, 6 billion void crystals. Yin Fa when Xion's palms were sweating. Even though he was rich, he couldn't afford to spend so much. The guest in Box 1's relentless pursuit made him a little hesitant. He wanted to bid again, but it was difficult for him to do so. This nightmare blood crystal wasn't of much use to him. His dark talent was only above average, and he didn't cultivate the dark attribute. The reason why he bid for the nightmare blood crystal was purely because of the value of this treasure, and he was a little unconvinced. Such a treasure, even if it wasn't suitable for him, he could still keep it. At that time, whether it was a favor or a treasure, it would be a good bargaining chip. However, 6 billion void crystals was indeed a bit high. Young master, please reconsider. Old Sui could only advise him. He knew his young master's temper very well. He had already suffered enough during the auction of the void broken jade, and now he couldn't stop him. What bad luck! Old Sui sighed in his heart. It wasn't easy for the guest in Box 10 to stop bidding, but the expert in Box 1 was determined to get the nightmare blood crystal. That momentum and attitude seemed to be telling them, no matter how much you bid, he will bid even higher. Kikik. Yin Fa when Xion's face was ashen. He clenched his fists and placed them in front of the button. He wanted to press it, but hesitated. He was in a dilemma. Fight! Yin Fa when Xion gritted his teeth and was about to raise the price again. Suddenly, beep, on the display screen, a new number suddenly appeared. It was a number that left everyone dumbfounded. Yin Fa when Xion's eyes widened as he looked at the number in front of him in shock. He staggered slightly, and his head was a little dizzy. He fell back on his butt dumbfounded. 6 billion void crystals. Guest in Box 10 bids 6 billion void crystals. Qin Weiyan's voice spread throughout the auction house. She was so excited that her face turned red. The whole auction house was filled with gasps. The cultivators were shocked as they looked at the latest bid. A huge amount of 6 billion void crystals was simply shocking. It had exceeded the normal auction price of an excellent true treasure. They had never heard of a treasure that could be auctioned for 6 billion void crystals. On the stage, Qin Yin was like a delicate rose, blooming in full bloom. Despite her rich experience in hosting countless auctions, the price of 6 billion void crystals was enough to rank her in the top 3. A new price. It was 600 million higher than the previous bid of 6 billion void crystals by the VIP in Box 1. Box 1. This was a group of humans with different appearances. Some were tall, some were short, some had green skin, some had faint stripes, some had short tails, and some had slightly bulging foreheads. However, they were all humans without a doubt. The one in the lead had a resolute and firm appearance. He stood proudly at the front of the room and looked down. His eyes shone brightly and carried an imposing aura. His face was tense, and his brows were furrowed as he pondered silently. Forget it, second brother, 6 billion void crystals is far beyond our base price. A 2-meter-tall human male advised. His skin was slightly dark, and there was a black wheel mark on his forehead. His body contained an astonishing amount of dark energy. It is indeed a little unexpected, the resolute man said in a deep voice. I didn't expect such a small auction to be full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. The dark man sneered. Including the void broken jade and the void gate key from before, this guest in seat number 10 is really rich. 11 billion void crystals, the resolute man nodded. Losing to such a rich man, I have nothing to say, the dark man smiled. I wonder which force he belongs to. I don't know, the resolute man said. Yes, it stands to reason that the 5 clans and 8 great forces should all be at the top. The dark man frowned slightly. His identity is not simple. 6 brother, take a look for yourself. The resolute man pointed down. The top boxes naturally had special privileges. They could see the people below, but the people below could not see them. Right now, the resolute man was pointing at Lin Feng's box 10. However, they could only see an empty space like a balcony outside, and could not see inside. But it was enough. Oh, Dragon King by Jing? The dark man's eyes lit up. She is talking to a human youth. Is it this human youth who is competing with us for the nightmare blood crystal? He looks unfamiliar. Indeed, the resolute man's eyes were like torches as he said in a deep voice, I have never seen him before. I have never seen him before either. The dark man stared for a long time, curled his lips, and could not help but exclaim, Dragon King by Jing is really beautiful. The resolute man's brows trembled slightly, and he said coldly, Be serious. The dark man smiled. You are too serious, second brother. If you can't buy it, then you can't buy it. Don't mind it too much. The resolute man said, The nightmare blood crystal can only be found by chance. As long as you refine it, your strength will increase by at least 30%. If you can integrate these two Tao of darkness, even I will not be able to win against you easily. Leave it to fate. The dark man shrugged, looking indifferent. Our Milky Way's human clan does not lack powerhouses. It doesn't matter whether I am there or not. What's more, we are about to enter the turbulent void. At that time, I might have a fortuitous encounter. The resolute man shook his head helplessly. His sixth brother had a wanton and unruly personality. He lacked the stubbornness of a powerhouse. However, everyone has their own aspirations and cannot be forced. Human, the resolute man's eyes were sharp and tenacious as he stared straight at Lin Feng. His majestic aura was like that of an ancient god, unshakable. At this time, in the auction house, whistling sounds rose one after another. The huge auction price of 6 billion void crystals had caused the atmosphere in the venue to reach its climax, like a tsunami, one wave after another. As the silence in Box 1 and Box 3 fell, gradually, the auction of the nightmare blood crystal could be said to be settled. 6 billion void crystals going once. 6 billion void crystals going twice. Qian Yueyan's voice gradually became louder, clear and moving, and went straight to the depths of one's heart. A pair of beautiful eyes bloomed with boundless luster, gorgeous and colorful, sweeping across the top boxes one by one, and finally falling on the 10th seat on the 3rd floor, full of endless mystery and curiosity. 6 billion void crystals going thrice. So, congratulations to the guest in Box 10 for purchasing the Nightmare Blood Crystal with 6 billion void crystals. Qian Yueyan was full of excitement. Her full breasts were constantly heaving up and down, and her clear and pleasant voice echoed throughout the entire auction house, lingering for a long time. In the venue, shouts one after another shook the sky. Every cultivator who participated in this auction was very excited. They had witnessed the birth of a miracle in this auction with their own eyes. An unknown guest in seat number 10 was able to suppress all the other guests. Spending nearly 12 billion void crystals, Yang Kai had won 3 treasures that were the highlight of the auction. He had won almost the entire auction, stunning the world with a single brilliant feat. This would become a legend. Chapter 1910. Again, he bought it again. Misty Cloud and Mei Yan were shocked speechless. In fact, ever since Bai Jing Dragon King arrived, they were already speechless. They originally thought that Lin Feng was just making a small fuss. Who would have thought that he would cause such a huge commotion, including the final 6 billion void crystals? Lin Feng had spent a total of 8 billion void crystals. What a joke! This was not 8 million void crystals. One must know that Big Dipper's current liquidity was less than 10 billion void crystals. Bai Jing Dragon King stared at Lin Feng, but she could not see any expression on his face. It was as if he had done something insignificant. Regarding Lin Feng's information, she had already informed He Yu Dragon King to further investigate Lin Feng's information. However, there was still no news at the moment. Dragon King, I don't have enough money on me right now. Nightmare blood crystals, I will give you the 6 billion void crystals in 3 days. Is that okay? Lin Feng turned his head and said. Bai Jing Dragon King frowned slightly and nodded. If 3 days is not enough, you can do it later. However, I'll say this first. If you are unable to complete the transaction within a month, you will be permanently blacklisted by my Tsang Dragon Auction House. It was normal to find out that one did not have enough money during the auction. This was because sometimes one only planned to buy one treasure, but later found another treasure that was better. Later on, one would find another treasure that they liked, and in the end, they would overspend. This situation was too common. Each metal grade had an amount that could be overspent. Gold metals generally overspent 2 billion void crystals at most. Diamond metals could overspend 10 billion void crystals at most. Basically, it was unlimited. Although Lin Feng only had a gold medal, he had already taken out 2 billion void crystals. According to the Tsang Dragon Auction House's rules, anyone who bought more than 5 billion void crystals at a time would become the Tsang Dragon Auction House's top VIP, regardless of status. Therefore, Lin Feng's current overdraft of 6 billion void crystals was tacitly approved by Jing Dragon King, even if she still had some prejudice against Lin Feng. However, as the helmsman of the Tsang Dragon Auction House, she would not act based on her emotions. No problem. Lin Feng smiled and replied, let's settle the accounts for the other treasures first. Since you've already taken out the money, you can't expect me to take it back, right? There's a total of 2 billion void crystals here. The extra can be considered as the interest for delaying the nightmare blood crystals for 3 days. No need. Nightmare blood crystals can be traded according to the rules. Bai Jing Dragon King was expressionless. With a casual swipe of her hand, a small corner was cut out from the pile of void crystals on the stage. Here are 2 million void crystals. Our Azure Dragon Auction House will not take advantage of anyone. Dragon Queen, Bai Jing said. Lin Feng smiled and put it away. Can you take me to hand over the treasure now? I'm in a hurry. The mystical mark on the Bai Jing Dragon King's forehead twitched and a glint flashed across her eyes. She was the leader of the Blue Dragon Auction House, and yet she did not say that she was in a rush when she accompanied him. This way, please. Bai Jing Dragon Queen suppressed her anger and turned around to lead the way. Lin Feng followed with a smile. The big auction had come to an end. This year's auction was extremely exciting. There were many treasures, and everyone was talking about them enthusiastically. Even after Qian Yueyin announced the end, the warriors in the venue were still reluctant to leave. They were discussing the mysterious guest in seat 10. The experts in the top box were also curious about Lin Feng's identity. However, by the time they wanted to check, Lin Feng had already left with Bai Jing Dragon King. With Bai Jing Dragon King around, the auction items were handed over quickly. Normally, she would monitor Nagashi to deal with Lin Feng. However, this time was different. Lin Feng bought 8 billion void crystals in one go. It could be said that he had set a record for the Azure Dragon Auction House. As the leader of the Azure Dragon Auction House, Bai Jing Dragon King naturally accompanied him. All right, all the auction treasures are inside. Please count them. Bai Jing Dragon King handed over the interspatial ring. No need. I don't trust you. Lin Feng smiled and accepted it. With the professionalism of the Azure Dragon Auction House, they would not make such a mistake. Most importantly, he did not know how many treasures he had auctioned. More than 99% of them were auctioned by Mei Yin. Anyway, as long as it was a heaven and earth fruit, she would not let it go. See you in 3 days. Lin Feng waved his hand and left. I'll send you off. Bai Jing Dragon King followed him. The streets of the Extreme Dragon Sky City were bustling. Opposite the Azure Dragon Auction House was the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. The 2 richest forces in the Origin Awakened continent were at loggerheads, especially now that the Heavenly Tea Pavilion was holding the Supreme Treasure Appreciation Conference. It was bustling with people. It was not inferior to the Azure Dragon Auction House at all. Experts from the other 2 imperial cities had also arrived. Many of them were not interested in the big auction. After all, there were not many supreme treasures that could directly increase one's combat power. However, The Supreme Treasure Appreciation Conference held by the Heavenly Tea Pavilion was different. Supreme treasures. Every one of them could increase one's combat power. Ordinary Supreme Treasures could allow a 7-star expert to unleash 100% of their combat power, let alone an 8-star expert. In a situation where elite Supreme Treasures were hard to find, it was not a bad thing for an 8-star expert to find an ordinary Supreme Treasure that was compatible with them. Moreover, they could afford it. The 7-star level was the dividing line among the experts in the Origin Awakened continent. 7-star and 8-star experts were the most common and were recognized as the top experts in the Origin Awakened continent. As for 9-star experts, there were less than 80 of them on the Origin Awakened list. Each of them was a legendary super expert. Ordinary warriors could not even see them. It's so lively. Lin Feng looked at the Heavenly Tea Pavilion as his eyes lit up. He was planning to head to the Heavenly Tea Pavilion to sell some of the elite Supreme Treasures and exchange them for void crystals. Of course it's lively because someone is playing tricks behind the scenes. Bai Jing Dragon King stood beside Lin Feng and said nonchalantly. Lin Feng smiled. He knew what Bai Jing Dragon King meant. Bai Jing Dragon King should have found out about his transaction at the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. The two forces must have planted spies in each other's camps. Let's stop here. Dragon King, I'm too eye-catching with you standing here, Lin Feng said with a smile. At this moment, all eyes were on Bai Jing Dragon King. As the helmsman of the Azure Dragon Auction House, Bai Jing Dragon King was very famous in the extreme Dragon Sky City. She was beautiful, had a high position, and was a 9-star expert on the Origin Awakened list. She was the dream lover of almost every man. Now, Lin Feng was standing beside Bai Jing Dragon King and was very eye-catching. After all, age was not a problem for a warrior. Time did not leave any traces on Bai Jing Dragon King. When she stood beside Lin Feng, they were like a golden couple. Okay, let's part here. I'll wait for you at the Azure Dragon Auction House, Bai Jing Dragon King said to Lin Feng. Her beautiful eyes flashed as she turned and returned to the Azure Dragon Auction House. The crowd was in a heated discussion. Lin Feng smiled. After parting with Bai Jing Dragon King, he crossed the street and headed to the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. An inexplicable chill surged from the bottom of his heart. Lin Feng's expression changed abruptly. He could not sense the aura at all. It was purely his sixth sense. It was a feeling of extreme danger. On the street. Chapter 1911. Boom! A terrifying power exploded in an instant. The ground cracked open as a ray of light shot out from nowhere. It passed through the crowd and launched an attack at Lin Feng without any warning. The terrifying sound of the wind directly tore through space, and the resplendent light caused the divine patterns of light on Lin Feng's body to shine brightly. The law of light. Profound light shuttle. Lin Feng attacked immediately. The profound light shuttle was the fastest treasure he could use, and with a thought, it instantly blasted out. This was all thanks to the sixth sense. When he sensed the danger approaching, Lin Feng had already condensed the profound light shuttle and controlled it. It was completely a conditioned reflex. At this moment, whoosh! The pure white profound light shuttle also turned into a stream of light and collided with the light stream in the distance. In just an instant, the profound light shuttle was like a small car crashing into a huge tank and was directly crushed into pieces. What? Lin Feng's expression changed. Although his profound light shuttle was not as powerful as the skeleton demon, it was also at the level of 8 stars. However, it could not block the light at all. This was definitely a 9-star level attack. Although the profound light shuttle was shot down, it gave Lin Feng a moment to prepare. Chi! Lin Feng's two sabers clashed. The moment the profound light shuttle was shot out, he had already formed the Eclipse Mystic Saber and the Peric Demon Saber. Light and darkness clashed, and the divine light pattern and the divine dark pattern on his skin shone brightly. The aura of an expert covered the sky. Saber mastery. The current Lin Feng's strength had improved again. In a battle with Wu Tsong, he fought to survive, comprehended the saber mastery realm, and perfected the first move of the 10,000 obscuring heavenly saber, Ashes. In terms of attack, Lin Feng had reached the level of 9 stars. In front of him, the light arrived instantly. Facing the powerful light that was like a white dragon, the 10,000 obscuring heavenly saber clashed fiercely with it. There was a sonorous sound that shook the heavens and the earth. Rumble, the space was torn apart, and the chaotic airflow spread everywhere. The terrifying power covered the entire area, and even the buildings of the Azure Dragon Auction House and Heavenly Tea Pavilion were damaged. The surrounding crowd was either dead or injured. The aftermath of a 9-star level attack was enough to kill a powerhouse below 7-star. It was simply terrifying. This was the ultimate Dragon Sky City, one of the 3 Imperial cities. There was actually someone who dared to make a move here without any scruples, completely ignoring the 3 great powers. Bang! Lin Feng violently vomited blood. The huge impact had caused him to be seriously injured in the first strike. The strength of the person who had come was extremely terrifying. That stream of light was a saber that was exactly the same as his. However, his opponent's saber technique realm was much higher than his. The other party's strength was even more terrifying. The law of light had reached the level of great perfection. In addition to the sneak attack, no one would have thought that such a powerful expert would make a move on the streets. Not to mention Lin Feng, even the Bai Jing Dragon King would be severely injured. Fortunately, Lin Feng had an extremely strong sixth sense, so he was barely able to block it. However, the current situation was not good. The opponent was extremely strong. He was the most terrifying expert he had ever met. Destiny Race. At the moment of the collision, Lin Feng had already seen the other party's appearance. He looked similar to a human, but he had no hair. His tall, erect ears grew on the top of his head like antlers. His 9 forked white eyes were cold and resolute. The saber in his hand was emitting a murderous aura. It was extremely ferocious. On his forehead, his Eye of Heaven's mandate had already opened. He was ranked 42nd on the Origin Awakening list, Wu Rai. Among the 9-star powerhouses of the Destiny race, he was the only one who walked the soul of the earth and the path of the physical body. Humph! Wu Rai also did not expect that he, a 9-star powerhouse, would not be able to kill this 8-star human with a sneak attack. He clearly knew how cunning this 8-star human was. His escape speed was extremely fast, and his sensing ability was extremely terrifying. This was the conclusion that the 9-star powerhouses of the Destiny race came to based on Lin Feng's actions in the Destiny race. Therefore, he would not give Lin Feng any chance. A sneak attack was nothing. In Wu Arai's heart, there were only strong and weak, life and death. Right now, he only wanted to kill Lin Feng, complete his mission, and make up for his mistakes in the Destiny race. No wonder you could defeat Wu Tsang. Your reaction speed is really shocking. Wu Arai's eyes were filled with killing intent. In an instant, he was already in front of Lin Feng. A pure white saber with divine runes condensed into threads of light that were extremely bright. Outstanding treasure, 1,000-thread divine weapon. Die! Wu Arai's saber suddenly fell. Like a furious thunderbolt, his path of light had reached perfection. The saber light condensed into a line, and its power was unparalleled. However, a shocking black light suddenly appeared. On the surface of Lin Feng's body, a black demonic boat suddenly condensed. Dense, dark demonic power condensed and instantly collided with Wu Arai's saber light. Outstanding treasure, Moshua boat. Defensive technique, melting. Bang! Metal clashed, and Wu Arai felt a strong reaction force. Although the black demonic boat was shattered, his arm was slightly numb, and he quickly retreated. Outstanding treasure, Moshua boat. Wu Arai was shocked. In the battle with Wu Tsang in the Destiny race, Lin Feng had suffered great losses. The Taurus crown was completely shattered, and the Scarlet Sun flaming wheel and the Black Dragon demonic armor could no longer be used. His defense was less than 10%. Fortunately, he had obtained the Moshua boat and studied it painstakingly. One of the 3 great techniques, melting, Lin Feng had already cultivated it to the second step before participating in the auction. Although he had not reached the third step perfectly, his defense was already several times stronger than the Black Dragon demonic armor. Moreover, the Mashua boat had the ability to reflect attacks. Wu Arai was caught off guard and suffered a loss. Otherwise, with his attack power, he could have broken the melting that had not been cultivated perfectly and killed Lin Feng. Final struggle. Wu Arai's eyes turned cold, but he did not care. Although Lin Feng was stronger than he had expected, and 2 consecutive attacks were not able to take his life, Wu Arai was 100% sure that this human would not be able to withstand his third attack. 80% of his strength. Wu Arai did not hold back anymore. His strength exploded instantly, and it was as if thousands of threads of light had gathered. The exaggerated afterimages condensed the astonishing power of the 1,000 threads divine weapon. He had unleashed 100% of the power of the outstanding true treasure. This was the true strength of a 9-star strong martial artist. The saber's almighty realm had reached the extreme. Boom! Wu Arai's attack exploded. Although his body was not very strong, his realm and precepts were extremely terrifying, far surpassing Lin Feng's. At this moment, a bright white light lit up in the void. It was in the shape of a cloud and was rotating rapidly. The wind was howling, and a white light suddenly appeared in front of Lin Feng. It descended from the sky. The white cloud flew out and instantly became infinitely huge. Hua! The bright white light enveloped Wu Arai. Bai Jing's domain. The clear female voice was very pleasant to listen to. The person who came was wearing a white robe. Her snow-white skin was so delicate that it seemed like water could be squeezed out with a pinch. Her black hair was like a waterfall, and she was like a fairy descending to the mortal world. She looked weak, but her strength was extraordinary. The person who came was Dragon King Bai Jing. She was ranked 70th on the Origin Awakening list. Chapter 1912. Outstanding True Treasure by Jing Plate. This was the symbol of Bai Jing Dragon King. It was good at control and defense. Because of this, Bai Jing Dragon King's attack was not strong enough. Hence, she was only ranked 70th in Origin Awakened Continent. However, it did not mean that she was weak. Bai Jing Plate, combined with Bai Jing Dragon King's perfected nomological law comprehension. The nomological domain displayed was boundless. Everywhere, there would be howling winds and tornadoes. White light shrouded the land. What a strong defense. Lin Feng stood up. There was blood at the corner of his mouth. On the surface of his body, the black Missouri Shin boat was faintly discernible. If it was an elite true treasure, its power would be reduced if it was not destroyed. However, the MO Shin boat was not damaged. This was the power of an outstanding true treasure. Let's go. Bai Jing Dragon King did not turn back. Her eyes were bright as she gritted her teeth. Before he finished speaking, the area in front of him that was shrouded in violent winds suddenly shook the earth. The earth rumbled and cracked open. Endless wind elements, accompanied by intense streams of light, scattered in all directions as if thousands of dragons were intertwining. Boom, boom, boom. Heavenly Tea Pavilion and Azure Dragon Auction Hall were affected again. The buildings that were strong enough to withstand the attacks of 7-star martial artists had huge holes in them. Poof! Bai Jing Dragon King spat out a mouthful of blood. In an instant, a white light streaked across the void. The saber light split the sky. As the space was torn apart, a figure bathed in white light stepped out of Bai Jing's domain. He was like the reincarnation of the god of death. Even the strong defense of Bai Jing Dragon King was broken in an instant. Dang! In an instant, the sound of a bell that shook one's soul rang. Thousands of bell sounds went straight for Wu Ergu. A huge phantom of an ancient bell appeared in the void. The ancient bell had golden patterns on it. They were connected layer by layer and contained an extremely ancient mystery. Golden fan bell. Golden light shone. Lin Feng did not escape. Instead, he attacked. It was too difficult for him to escape. Given Bai Jing Dragon King's personality, she would definitely stop Wu Ergu. Although he had not known Bai Jing Dragon King for long, Lin Feng knew her personality very well. If it was any other 9-star martial artist, they might have held back. However, this bloodthirsty Destiny Tribe martial artist before him would definitely not. The Destiny race had never been afraid of offending any faction, not even the Purple Star Astral Pavilion. The Azure Dragon Auction House was the weakest of the 8 forces. Why would the Destiny race care about it? Therefore, Lin Feng decided to fight. If he was alone, he might not stand a chance. However, with the help of Bai Jing Dragon King, he might be able to give it a shot. Boom! Wu Erge's expression changed slightly, and he seemed to stagger a little. However, in an instant his veins popped out, and the violent white light spread out like thousands of threads. The terrifying aura was like a white light tiger roaring crazily. The golden fan bell had lost its effect. The soul of a 9-star elite warrior was already very strong, and the Destiny race was even more blessed. Although Wu Erai did not specialize in the path of the soul, it did not mean that his soul was weak. In the void, a blood-red skeleton instantly bit towards Wu Ergu. Tian Ho cultivated berserker blood, combined with the elite true treasure skeleton demon. Although its speed was not as fast as the profound light shuttle, its power had also reached the threshold of 9 stars. Lin Feng's attacks were like a tsunami, wave after wave. The advantage that Wu Erai had just built up was instantly wiped out. In a short period of time, Bai Jing Dragon King had also recovered some vitality. Just like Lin Feng, she was also caught off guard by Wu Erai. She did not expect her opponent to be so strong. Bai Jing Plate. Bai Jing Dragon King shouted, and the Bai Jing Plate in her hand suddenly split into 10, 10 into 100, and then into 1,000. Endless white light that contained the power of the wind flew rapidly in all directions. There was a sharp piercing sound. The edge of the Bai Jing Plate was extremely sharp. It was thin and sharp. As long as one was grazed by it, one's skin would be cut open. Swoosh! A purplish-brown long whip was swung out from Bai Jing Dragon King's hand. It was like a giant python that opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Wu Erai. Since her attack did not work, Bai Jing Dragon King also changed her battle tactics and brought out her true strength. He can actually survive Wu Erai's sneak attack, and he can even counterattack quickly. Bai Jing Dragon King's beautiful eyes flickered. She had a new understanding of Lin Feng's strength. This battle strength was not much weaker than hers. Even she would be severely injured by Wu Erai's sneak attack. She was not afraid of those strong experts. She was only afraid of those strong experts who were unscrupulous. As a member of the Destiny race, her soul was stronger than ordinary martial artists. She also had outstanding soul-type treasures. If Wu Erai wanted to sneak attack, not many experts on the Origin Awakening list would be able to detect it. Those below the Origin Awakening list who could survive Wu Erai's sneak attack could be counted on one hand. Outside the main street, in midair, although it had not even been 10 seconds since Lin Feng was sneak attacked and Bai Jing Dragon King joined in, it was now a 2 versus 1 battle. However, there were actually many martial artists watching the battle. This was because the auction had just ended and it was time to disperse. Many experts were already on the main street. There were also some who had just stepped out of the auction house. So powerful. Yin Fa when Xin was wearing a long robe. His eyes were bright as he gazed at the battle in the distance without blinking. In front of him, there were 2 Demon Clan experts at the peak of the 8-star Demon Clan. They were emitting a terrifying dark aura, protecting him loyally. Destiny Race's Wu Erai, ranked 42nd on the Origin Awakening list. Old Sui's eyes were like torches. Although he is much weaker than Father, those who can enter the Origin Awakening list are not ordinary. Yin Fa when Xin said. 1 against 2. He has the upper hand. The victor will be decided very soon. Although Bai Jing Dragon King is good at defense, her strength is much weaker than Wu Erai's, Old Sui said. Yin Fa when Xin nodded. Father said that the experts on the Origin Awakening list are divided into 4 ranks. The first 10 ranks are the first rank, the second rank from 11 to 30 ranks, the third rank from 31 to 50 ranks, and the last rank after 51 ranks. Wu Arai is in the third rank, a full rank stronger than by Jing Dragon King. It is natural for him to win, Old Sui said. Old Sui said that human Lin Feng is also very powerful. He and the White Dragon King cooperate seamlessly, one attacking and the other defending. They completely cover up their weaknesses. The two of them together should have the strength of a third-tier origin awakener list cultivator. Yin Fa when Xian's nose twitched. Although he did not want to admit it, he knew that Old Sui's words were true. He could not help but clench his fists. This human Lin Feng had bumped into him at the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. He did not expect to meet him here again. This unknown human youth seemed to be about the same age as him, but his strength, no, I am stronger than him. Yin Fa when Xian's eyes were filled with stubbornness. What a pity. Old Sui sighed. Even if the two of them have the strength of a third-rank expert, they are still at the end of the third rank. Wu Arai, on the other hand, has the strength of a middle-rank expert. They're going to lose. Yin Fa when Xian looked over, his eyes like lightning. Indeed, when Old Sui said that, Bai Jing Dragon King had already been sent flying, and her defense had been destroyed. Chapter 19:13. Too strong. Wu Arai was terrifyingly strong. Light Tao, Light Tao, Light Tao, two great Tao of light, Tao perfected, and he had an outstanding true treasure, the 10,000 thread divine weapon that could unleash 100% of its power. In addition, the soul of the Destiny race was strong, and the Eye of Destiny bloodline was shocking. He had no weaknesses at all. He would definitely lose if he kept defending. Moreover, Bai Jing Dragon King did not specialize in defense. Her defense relied more on outstanding true treasures. In addition, there was a gap between her strength and Wu Arai's. She was no match for him. Lin Feng was going all out. His body's shocking recovery ability had healed Lin Feng's injuries from the sneak attack. At this moment, the Peric Demon Saber was absorbing blood crazily. Lin Feng's eyes turned dark red, and his killing aura surged. The divine mark of light and the demonic mark of darkness merged together, and Lin Feng's strength continued to rise. He, who was pushed to the limit by Wu Arai, had a deeper understanding of the 10,000 obscuring heavenly saber. There was a big mystery between life and death. Under the saber's omniscient realm, Lin Feng had completely merged with the two sabers. His understanding of saber techniques was even deeper. The second move, Tears of Chaos. Although he had never successfully used it before, Lin Feng felt that he could succeed this time. This was an inexplicable confidence. This was the understanding of power when one was forced to a dead end. At this moment, his body, blood, cells, and soul had all entered a strange state. His body's strength was mobilized to the limit. The Peric Demon Saber's absorption of blood was even more violent and crazy. Even Lin Feng seemed to be possessed. Using all his strength, Lin Feng's two sabers pierced through the air. Facing the light saber that had seriously injured Bai Jing Dragon King, he was fearless. There was only endless fighting spirit and belief in his eyes. Light and darkness intersected and merged perfectly at this moment. Faintly, there was a taste of fusion. Boom! Heaven and earth shook. The two forces toward each other crazily. Wu Arai's eyes were filled with killing intent. He was extremely shocked. This saber move, with bloodshot eyes, Wu Arai felt a heavy pressure on his shoulders from a mere 8-star human youth. Get out of my way! Wu Ergu roared like a ferocious tiger, breaking free of its shackles. Endless rays of light darted out from the 10,000 thread divine weapon, making ear-piercing sounds as they tore through the air. In his fury, he broke Lin Feng's attacks. Not only that, but Wu Ergu, who had gone berserk from the battle, also performed endless saber techniques, causing rumbling sounds to ring out incessantly. If he didn't get rid of him, he would definitely become a huge threat. Die! Wu Ergu charged towards Lin Feng, who was flying backwards. His eyes were cold and resolute, and his killing intent was overflowing. He came this time to take Lin Feng's life. He already had such strength at such a young age, turning the Destiny realm upside down. What would happen when he became a 9-star expert? Right at this moment, an endless amount of gravel suddenly condensed and formed a 5-meter-tall stone giant in the void. The clumsy body merely took a step forward and threw out a stone fist that collided with Wu Urgu's 10,000-thread divine weapon. Rumble! The stone fist was shattered. However, every piece of gravel carried a ray of light that easily turned Wu Urgu's attack into nothingness. What? Wu Urgu's expression changed abruptly. His body was pushed back, and he landed heavily on the ground. He wanted to continue attacking, but there was already a figure standing in front of him. He was wearing a gray battle armor and looked resolute. He had short hair and a steel-like face. His robust body stood there like a huge rock mountain. Sure, Dingshan. Wu Urgu's eyes widened. Long time no see, Wu Urgu. The resolute man, Sure Dingshan, stretched out his rough palm, revealing the lines on his palm. In front of his palm, gravel suddenly appeared and collided with each other, forming a simple and unadorned wall. It formed a solid barrier, a truly top-notch defense. Beijing Dragon King's defense, compared to Shi Dingshan's, was like the difference between a firefly and the sun and the moon. Shi Dingshan ranked 25th on the Origin Awakening list. At this moment, Lin Feng, who had used all his strength to take Wu Urgu's attack head-on, was suffering from the pain of thousands of threads gnawing at his body. It was as if countless worms were crawling into his skin. Lin Feng's eyes were red, and he gritted his teeth. A violent, murderous aura spread out. Although he was seriously injured, his fighting spirit did not fade at all. As long as he had a trace of strength left, he would fight to the end. Escape? That was impossible. Lin Feng clearly knew that in front of Wu Urgu, a true top-notch 9-star expert, he would not be able to escape at all. Unless he had already pulled away from him, there might still be some hope. Otherwise, he would be killed the moment he tried to escape. Whoosh! A strange dark power suddenly enveloped his body. Lin Feng was slightly stunned. It was born from the same source as his dark devil patterns. As it enveloped him, it directly absorbed his body like a leech. Lin Feng's pupils suddenly shrank. At this moment, he could not resist this power at all. Moreover, it came too quickly. However, the dark power did not have any evil intentions. It was like a leech sucking blood. Under normal circumstances, it was naturally not a good behavior. However, if it was sucking tainted blood, it was a different story. In medicine, leeches often had miraculous uses. At this moment, the rays of light that had pierced his body and attacked him crazily like worms were all absorbed by the dark power. It was as if the needles that covered his body were being pulled out one by one. The pain instantly lessened, and his strength also recovered a lot. His entire body seemed to have escaped from a cage. Whoosh! A force twisted behind him, and Lin Feng immediately landed. A black-clothed man with a casual smile appeared in front of him. He was about 2 meters tall, and his skin was slightly dark. Devil patterns appeared on his upper arms, and there was a black lune mark on his forehead. His entire body was nurturing an extremely strong dark power. Not bad, kid. The black-clothed man smiled, revealing a row of big white teeth. Although he was dressed in black, he gave off a very sunny and carefree feeling, just like the big boy next door. Senior, thank you for saving me. Lin Feng naturally knew that it was this black-clothed man who had done it. He looked into the distance and saw that Wu Irai did not chase after him. Instead, he was confronting a man who was like a boulder. Although he could not see the face of the man in front of him clearly, his sixth sense told him that he was very strong. Standing behind him and looking at his broad and thick back, he felt an inexplicable sense of security. He was even stronger than the Destiny race expert who had attacked him. Don't worry. With second brother here, that kid from the Destiny race won't be able to do anything. The black-clothed man sneered, and there was some disgust between his eyebrows. A 9-star expert bullying a junior. How shameless. The worst thing is that he beat up my little Beijing like this. The black-clothed man's face was filled with pain, and his body flashed and disappeared. Lin Feng was stunned. He turned his head and saw that the black-clothed man who had just saved him had already run to the Beijing Dragon King's side. asking about her well-being and taking care of her. Lin Feng could not help but laugh bitterly. This senior was truly an independent person. Chapter 1914. Sure, Dingshan, don't meddle in other people's business. Wu Erai's eyes were sharp. His 9 forks were like needles, faintly revealing his powerful soul power. He was furious. He was about to complete his mission and kill Lin Feng. But Shi Dingshan suddenly appeared and blocked his way. Although his killing intent was bursting, Wu Erai knew that his attack could not break through Shi Dingshan's defense. If they really fought, he would not gain any advantage. The seemingly ordinary giant stone man in front of him had the best defense among all the 9-star strong beings. His defense was not half-baked like by Jing Dragon King, who relied on an outstanding true treasure. Therefore, he dare not speak out. Go back, Wu Erai. This is not a place you should be. Shi Dingshan's voice was as loud as a bell. His face was as resolute as iron, and his eyes were cold. The Destiny tribe was too unscrupulous. They dared to fight on the streets of the Imperial City. They did not take the 8 forces seriously at all. However, they did have the capital to do whatever they wanted. Even if Shi Dingshan could defeat Wu Erai and even kill him, would Shi Dingshan dare to do so? The Death Soul attack of an 8-star strong being from the Destiny tribe could kill a 9-star strong being at the bottom of the Origin Awakening list, let alone a 9-star strong being like Wu Erai. On the Origin Awakening list, there were no more than 3 martial artists who could kill Wu Erai and survive. Moreover, even these 3 super strong beings would have to pay a high price. Shi Dingshan. Wu Erai's voice suddenly became stern. He put on a strong front and said, "Our Heaven's Fate tribe will definitely take this person's life. If you continue to stop us, you will become our enemy. Others may be afraid of the Destiny tribe, but the Milky Way's human tribe is not. So what if we are enemies? If you want to fight, I will accompany you to the end." Shi Dingshan stretched out his hand and clenched it. With a sound, a fist as heavy as Mount Tai condensed in the void. It was extremely terrifying. His path of earth had reached the peak. "You." Wu Erai gritted his teeth, his veins popping. He looked around and saw more and more people watching. His face was a little embarrassed. He stared at Shi Dingshan and said, "Just you wait, Shi Dingshan. When the time comes, we will settle this with the Milky Way's human tribe. This feud is set." Shi Dingshan laughed heartily and looked at Wu Erai with disdain. "Stop talking nonsense. If you want to fight, then fight. If you don't, then go back to your destiny boundary." As he spoke, boundless earth energy rumbled and appeared around Wu Ergu. The ground shook violently as rocks and dirt flew everywhere. With Wu Erai as the center, a terrifying wave of earth rippled. It contained an extremely powerful law, as well as a terrifying power. Shi Dingshan clenched his fists, his eyes bursting with fighting spirit as he shouted. Boom! The entire ground instantly exploded, and countless rocks flew out from below. Although it was only a portion of his strength, he was already showing his might. He was much stronger than Wu Erai. Wu Ergu's expression changed abruptly. Almost instantly, he flew into the sky. His face was distorted, and his eye of destiny was incomparably mournful. Shi Dingshan, you will regret this. His shrill voice was like the roar of a ferocious ghost, echoing in the sky above the ultimate dragon sky city. Cowardly bandit. Shi Dingshan retracted his hand, his eyes cold and disdainful. In an instant, countless rocks flew from the sky and landed on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the severely damaged ground was repaired perfectly as if nothing had happened. It was amazing. The fighting spirit disappeared with Wu Erai's departure. Senior, thank you for saving me. Lin Feng came before Shi Dingshan. This was the first time he saw this transcendent being. Simple and unadorned, yet simple. His entire person gave off a dignified feeling, as well as an indescribable sense of familiarity. You're welcome. Shi Dingshan's rock-like face revealed a smile, as if a glacier had melted. You must be Lin Feng. I was delayed for a while, because I was looking for information about you. Fortunately, I made it in time. Sure, Ding Shan's gaze was indifferent, as if he was a kind elder, which made Lin Feng's heart feel inexplicably calm. Looking for information about me? Lin Feng was slightly surprised. Sure, Ding Shan said, "This is not the place to talk. Follow me." Lin Feng nodded. On the other side, the man in black had already brought the severely injured by Jing Dragon King over. His face was full of heartache, and his mouth kept cursing, unable to calm down. "Return to the auction house first, sixth brother," Shi Dingshan said. "Okay, second brother." The man in black nodded. They left as quickly as they came, with the speed of a 9-star expert. Leaving was just a matter of a blink of an eye. The street was filled with the smell of blood. The huge buildings of the Azure Dragon Auction House and Heavenly Tea Pavilion were damaged, not to mention the ordinary buildings beside them. The impact of a 9-star expert's battle was too serious. Those who were killed by Wu Arai were unlucky. However, to Wu Arai, no matter how many died, human lives were like grass to him. What happened just now? I don't know. It was a chaotic battle. I didn't dare to go near. Yes, their power is too terrifying. If we were a little slower, we would have been affected and all died. There were almost no survivors. Those who were affected at close range could not escape at all. If Mei-Yin and Misty Cloud had not left first, they would have been killed. They were lucky. Coincidentally, Lin Feng was going to hand over the treasure with by Jing Dragon King, so he let them leave first. The street was full of wreckage and ruins. This battle was too terrifying. There were indeed city guards who rushed over after hearing the news, but none of them dared to go near. They were not idiots. A 9-star expert's battle was not something they could control. So what if they killed? So what if they turned the extreme Dragon Sky city upside down? In the end, he left without a word. No one dared to stop him, even if there were 9-star experts from the extreme Dragon Sky city. The one floating in the air was the Black Dream Dragon King from the Azure Dragon Auction House. He wore a long black robe, had purplish-green hair, and his eyes were as dark as the abyss. His anger soared to the heavens. But what could he do? Rush out to stop Wu Arai? Not to mention that his ranking was lower than Wu Arai's on the Origin Awakening list. Wu Arai's identity as a Destiny tribe member was a taboo. In the Origin Awakening continent, everyone knew that the Destiny tribe was unreasonable. So what? Kill them if you can? You can't kill them, but they can kill you. In a battle of the same level, there was no room for distraction. The slightest flaw in your heart would put you at a disadvantage. The Black Dream Dragon King was not Shi Dingshan. He was an attack type. Battle was about attacking, and attacking again. Although he and Wu Arai were similar in strength, if they really fought, he would have a 90% chance of losing. Damn Destiny tribe member. The Black Dream Dragon King looked at the destroyed Azure Dragon Auction House and could only swallow his anger. He could not stop Wu Arai at all. If he tried, he would only embarrass himself. Chapter 1915. Blue Dragon Auction House, top floor. Shi Dingshan's group was gathered in a huge black metal box. Although there weren't many of them, they were all powerful. Even the weakest one was at the peak of 8-star. Under the care of the black-clothed man, Bai Jing Dragon King had recovered a lot of energy. However, her beautiful face had lost some of its luster and looked very weak. Box 1, Lin Feng thought. The number of the box represented the status and nobility of the guest. Box 1 meant that they had the highest status in the hearts of the Blue Dragon Auction House's upper echelons in this auction. Even on the Origin Awakening list, those who could defeat the Destiny race's top-notch powerhouses without breaking a sweat were major characters who could be counted among the top. Shi Dingshan, just call me Brother Shi. Shi Dingshan smiled at Lin Feng. This is my 6th brother, Suin. He was the one who fought with you for the Nightmare Demon Blood Crystal. Suin's lips curled as he shrugged and spread out his hands. Lin Feng nodded. Box 1 was the one who fought with him for the Nightmare Demon Blood Crystal the most fiercely. Since Brother Su likes the Nightmare Demon Blood Crystal, I'm willing to give it to you. Lin Feng didn't care about worldly possessions, no matter how valuable the Nightmare Demon Blood Crystal was. If it weren't for Brother Shi's help this time, he would have had a slim chance of survival. It was only right to give him a piece of Nightmare Demon Blood Crystal to repay the debt of saving his life. No, no. I'll lose face if word gets out that I'm greedy for your things. The black-clothed man, Suan, widened his eyes and shook his head. Sure Dingshan smiled. Lin Feng, we appreciate your kindness. The highest bidder wins the auction. The nightmare demon blood crystal doesn't belong to us, so there's no need to force it. Sixth brother, and I saved you not because of anything else, but because of your identity. My identity? Lin Feng froze. By Jing Dragon King's eyes also lit up. Lin Feng's origins were a mystery. Although she had sent people to investigate, they didn't get much information. Even now, she didn't know where he came from. Shi Dingshan smiled and said, If I'm not wrong, you should be the same as us. You're not from here, right? Lin Feng looked directly at Shi Dingshan. The latter's body was as heavy as a mountain, solid and solid, but he gave off a trustworthy feeling. If it had been someone else, he might not have answered, but Brother Shi had saved his life. Lin Feng nodded. Bai Jing Dragon King's pupils shrunk. She looked at Shi Dingshan and Su En and suddenly realized, the Milky Way? Shi Dingshan laughed heartily, and Su En, who was beside him, also chuckled. Brother Shi, Brother Su, are you all from the Milky Way? Lin Feng was shocked and shocked. Then he revealed a smile, feeling as if he had met an old friend in a foreign land. He never thought that he would be able to meet someone from the same place as him in Origin Awakened Continent. I'm not. Suan shrugged. But second brother is. Bai Jing Dragon King was stunned. Don't you all come from the Milky Way? Milky Way human tribe. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He had already guessed their identities before, and now he was certain. They were indeed from the Milky Way's human tribe of the 5 major tribes. Silly girl, how many people are there in the Milky Way's human tribe? Billions of people. How can there be so many strong people in the Milky Way? Suan glanced at Bai Jing Dragon King and said helplessly, To enter Origin Awakened Continent, you have to enter the ancient Thousand Worlds secret realm first, then enter the Tung Chi continent. But how many people can enter the ancient Thousand Worlds secret realm? Also, you have to be at the top of the Milky Way to enter the secret realm of death, which is the Tung Chi continent. Every time the ancient Thousand Worlds secret realm opens, only a few can enter the Tung Chi continent, let alone the Origin Awakened continent. Lin Feng nodded. He had experienced this personally. It was too difficult. Moreover, the ancient Thousand Worlds secret realm opened a long time apart. It wasn't always open. I understand. Bai Jing Dragon King was not stupid. She quickly understood. Shi Dingshan looked at Lin Feng and said, Those who can enter the secret realm of death are the top geniuses in the Milky Way. They are extremely talented, but because the Milky Way's power is limited, they can't break through. Every world had a certain amount of restrictions and pressure. The rules of the universe were operating. It was the same for places as small as Earth's solar system, as large as the Milky Way, and as large as the Origin Awakened continent. When one's power reached the top of the world, the closer one was to the limit, the harder it was to break through. It was extremely difficult. The ancestor who created the human tribe of the Milky Way has fallen. Shi Dingshan sighed softly. There was a hint of nostalgia in his eyes. Our ancestor was an amazing person. From a Milky Way to the Tung Chi continent, and then to the Origin Awakened continent, he built his empire with his own strength. The few experts who followed him also perished, but their descendants managed the human tribe of the Milky Way in an orderly manner. From an ordinary tribe, they rose step by step and gradually grew into a top-notch tribe. It's a pity that the descendants of our ancestors didn't have any particularly outstanding characters, nor did they have good resources. The strongest was only at the 8-star level. Lin Feng nodded. The reason why a strong person could become a strong person was because of their bloodline, but also because of various opportunities and experiences. It was not easy to become the top strong person in the vast Milky Way. With that kind of aptitude, as long as they didn't fall in the Origin Awakened continent, it wouldn't be too difficult for them to become a 7-star or 8-star strong person. But their descendants might not be so. After all, the bloodline would change and become thin. Until the appearance of Big Brother, the legendary sacred lord of the 100 Saints martial temple of the Dongwang Empire. Dongwang Empire. 100 Saints, Martial Temple. Lin Feng's eyes widened in shock, because he was also from the 100 Saints Martial Temple. After joining the human tribe of the Milky Way and receiving the tribe's protection and resources, Big Brother's strength improved by leaps and bounds. It didn't take long for him to break through and become a 9-star strong person, shocking the Origin Awakened continent. Shi Dingshan's eyes were filled with incomparable reverence. After that, Big Brother entered the void turbulence several times and narrowly escaped death again and again, but he became stronger each time. His ranking kept rising from the bottom of the Origin Awakened list. Now, he has entered the top 10 of the Origin Awakened list. He supported the tribe with his own strength. Not only Shi Dingshan, but Suin's eyes were also filled with pride. They were proud of their tribe and their patriarch. This was the pride of the tribe and the pride of the human tribe of the Milky Way. Sixth on the Origin Awakened list, Dongwang by Jing Dragon King murmured. Dongwang. Lin Feng was slightly surprised, but he understood after thinking about it. It seemed that this legendary strong person from the Dongwang Empire of the Milky Way still remembered the past after becoming famous. In order to not forget his hometown, he gave himself this name. Sixth on the Origin Awakened list. He was really strong. This was a transcendent figure who truly stood at the top of the Origin Awakened continent. Chapter 1916. Second brother came much later than the patriarch, but he was much luckier than the patriarch. Suin immediately said, the patriarch was innocent. At that time, the human clan of the Milky Way had many things to do, and there were many internal conflicts. When second brother came, the human clan of the Milky Way was already under the leadership of the patriarch, and they were as tight as a rope. Under the careful training of the patriarch, second brother's strength improved steadily. Although he was not as talented as the patriarch, he was also very amazing. Like a comet, he gradually grew into the mainstay of the clan. Until now, Suin looked at Shi Dingshan with a smile. The patriarch almost doesn't care about anything anymore. He concentrates on cultivation, and second brother handles almost all clan affairs. Bai Jing Dragon King looked at Shi Dingshan. The human clan of the Milky Way, led by Deputy Patriarch Shi, is as strong as a rock. Suin smiled. The patriarch also said that second brother is more suitable than him to take care of the clan. Personality dictated. Lin Feng also felt that with Shi Dingshan's steadiness, he was very suitable for the position of patriarch. Shi Dingshan smiled indifferently. I'm just helping Big Brother to take care of things. With Big Brother's intelligence and ability, he can do everything well. Without him, there would be no human clan of the Milky Way today. Suin nodded with admiration. The patriarch is the most powerful person I have ever seen. The patriarch of Dongwang is indeed a legend. Bai Jing Dragon King also sighed. Lin Feng nodded. In fact, it was like establishing an empire. Although it was difficult to govern, it was more difficult to establish. Because there are no precedents, and there are not many resources available to be able to establish such a foundation while surrounded by heroes. He was definitely an ambitious and ruthless person. Talent, ambition, and ability all were indispensable. Shi Dingshan then talked about the history of the human clan of the Milky Way. As the clan grew stronger, there were more and more resources. Especially under the leadership of Dongwang and Shi Dingshan, the human clan of the Milky Way gradually emerged. The clan's talent was actually not bad. After all, their ancestors were 9-star and 8-star strongmen. With enough resources and the guidance of Dongwang and Shi Dingshan, the experts in the clan gradually began to emerge. For example, Enigma and Sanya became 9-star experts one after another. Then, Firefly came and became the 5th 9-star expert of the human clan in the Milky Way. I'm the 6th and the last one. Suin laughed heartily. Unlike 5th sister, I'm a descendant of our ancestors. Don't be rude. It's 5th sister, Shi Dingshan said. Suin curled his lips. She's younger than me. Shi Dingshan's gaze was like a torch, his brows furrowed slightly, like a furious lion king. Yes, second brother. Suin lowered his head like a child who had made a mistake. He had always been fearless. He even dared to provoke his fourth brother, who was known as a battle maniac. The only thing he was afraid of was his second brother, who was as tough as a rock. On the path of a martial artist, the one who has reached the top is the first. To a martial artist, age is not important, Shi Dingshan said earnestly. Lin Feng could empathize with such a dignified aura, as if he was a strict and kind father. No wonder the human tribe of the Milky Way was so glorious under Shi Dingshan's leadership. 6 9-star masters, Lin Feng exclaimed. Shi Dingshan looked over and nodded. That's right. Among the 5 races, only the Destiny race is stronger than us. The Winged Men race is the same as us, having 6 9-star warriors. The Tsang Demon race and the Void Dragon race have less than 6. Among the 8 major forces, only the Ziwei Star Tower has more 9-star masters than us. Lin Feng nodded. He didn't expect the human tribe of the Milky Way to be so powerful. How many 9-star masters does the Tsang Dragon Auction House have? Lin Feng asked curiously. 3. The White Dragon King answered with a snort. The difference was obvious. The number of 9-star masters was enough to reflect the strength of a force to a certain extent. Lin Feng also understood that the Tsang Dragon Auction House was the same as the Heavenly Tea Pavilion. After all, they focused on business and lacked combat power. The strongest among the 8 major forces was the Ziwei Star Tower, followed by Thorn and Fatal Limit. They were neck and neck. Lin Feng, which empire in the Milky Way do you come from? Shi Dingshan asked. The 7 empires in the Milky Way had a long history and were no less powerful than the forces in the Qiyuan continent. For example, the Dongwang Empire had been standing for hundreds of millions of years. The 100 Saints Martial Temple of the Dongwang Empire, Lin Feng replied. Wow! Suan screamed and stared at Lin Feng. Are you serious, kid? Yes. Lin Feng nodded. Shi Dingshan's eyes flashed, and he laughed heartily. Fate has brought us together. I didn't expect Lin Feng to come from 100 Saints Martial Temple of the Dongwang Empire, just like my brother. But it makes sense. The genius warriors of the Dongwang Empire basically belong to the 100 Saints Martial Temple. Lin Feng nodded. In the Dongwang Empire, the 100 Saints Martial Temple was like a legend. It could be said that it supported the entire Dongwang Empire. My brother will be very happy to see you. Shi Dingshan looked at Lin Feng. We can't stay here for long. Lin Feng, are you willing to go back to the clan with us? Go to the human clan of the Milky Way? Lin Feng was surprised. He didn't expect Shi Dingshan to make such an invitation. Dragon King Bai Jing glanced at him and said softly, Deputy Patriarch Shi wants to ask if you are willing to join the human clan of the Milky Way. Shi Dingshan laughed. Since Dragon King Bai Jing has made it clear, I won't beat around the bush. Lin Feng, the human clan of the Milky Way, has 2 branches. One branch is the descendants of our ancestors. For example, Mystery, Sanya, and Suan are from this branch. The other branch is from the Milky Way. For example, me, 5th sister Firefly, and of course my brother. There are very few humans from the Qiyuan continent who come from the Milky Way. As long as we find one, we will invite them regardless of their strength. However, Lin Feng, you're the first one who has the strength of an 8-star as soon as you are found. Shi Dingshan smiled. Generally, those with 7-star strength will have some fame in the Qiyuan continent. For example, 5th sister Firefly joined when she was 7-star. When we came to this unfamiliar Qiyuan continent, we were basically alone. Now we have a home. So I sincerely hope that you can join the big family of the human clan of the Milky Way. Shi Dingshan showed a kind smile. Although it was like a boulder of steel, it gave people a warm feeling. His smile was not fake. It was completely from the bottom of his heart. That kind of feeling was like family. After spending some time together, Lin Feng had a good impression of Shi Dingshan and Suan. Moreover, they had saved his life. He really yearned for the big family of the human clan of the Milky Way. After all, it was rare to meet people on the same path in this unfamiliar world. But suddenly joining, this is indeed a bit abrupt, especially since you have just experienced an assassination, Lin Feng. Shi Dingshan smiled. Don't rush to make a decision. Take your time and think carefully before giving me an answer. 6 brother, and I will stay here for about 7 days. Okay, brother, sure, Lin Feng responded. Chapter 1917. The benefits that the battle with Wu Irai brought to Lin Feng were enormous. An expert of this level was an opponent that could only be encountered by chance. In the final desperate situation, Lin Feng had even successfully executed the second move of the 10,000 Obscurity Heavenly Blade, Tears of Chaos. Although it was still far inferior to Wu Irai, it had given him a chance of survival. With his current strength, he was still far from being able to contend with Wu Irai. The reason he was evenly matched with Wu Tsang was more due to the 10,000 Origin Mustard Stone. His combat strength restrained his opponent, not his own strength. Lin Feng had always known this. My attacks have reached the 9-star level. However, in terms of defense, control, power usage, and laws, they are far from reaching that level. My overall combat strength is only at the peak of the 8-star level. Lin Feng knew this clearly. Ordinary 8-star experts would have comprehended a certain nomological great Tao to perfection. However, up until now, he had yet to achieve perfection in a single nomological great Tao. Although the 12 light and darkness nomological great Taos were close to perfection, they were not proficient. In terms of combat strength, they were useless. I can either fuse them or comprehend them to perfection. In terms of combat strength, if the fusion reaches the 3rd stage, in theory, the power will exceed perfection. However, the perfection realm is more widely used. It is also necessary to improve one's life level. The difference between 8-star and 9-star was the difference in life level. There were many aspects to improving one's life level. For example, bloodline, nomological comprehension, space attainment, talent soul, and so on. Ordinary 8-star experts were either at perfection in a nomological great Tao or had outstanding bloodline. Lin Feng was the latter. With the Nightmare Demon Blood Crystal, if my Dark Demon Tao can reach perfection, I will be able to break through to 9-star. There's a 30 to 50% chance. Bloodline, perfection, and space nomological laws were the 3 main elements for a martial artist to break through to 9-star. 9 out of 10 9-star experts had taken this path. When the 3 were combined, as long as one's talent was not too bad, one could become a 9-star expert. People like the Destiny race were born with strong souls and amazing bloodlines. The Destiny realm was also blessed with amazing space energy. Therefore, it was easier for them to break through to 9-star. As for the various realms, they would not improve one's life level. Realms were more related to combat power. My cultivation time is too short. Although I have comprehended the high-grade, true meaning of space, it is too difficult to rely on it to comprehend a trace of the laws of space. Lin Feng was very clear on this point. The difficulty of comprehending the laws of space was no less than reaching perfection in a great Tao of laws. Although there was a black whirlpool in his bloodline, it was still a far cry from the light element divine inscriptions and the dark element divine inscriptions. A powerful bloodline and a perfected nomological great Tao. Lin Feng chose this as a direction for his breakthrough. By raising my Tao of tenebrous fiend to perfection, I will gain insights into the other great Tao of darkness. At that time, even if I can't break through to 9 stars, I can still continue to comprehend the second great Tao of darkness. Normally, an 8-star expert would only comprehend one great Tao of darkness. It was rare for an 8-star expert to comprehend 2 great Tao of darkness. This was because comprehending 2 great Tao of darkness would increase one's life level. As long as one's bloodline wasn't too bad, one could basically become a 9-star expert. Of course, in history, there were also great Tao perfected with 3 laws that had yet to reach the 9-star level. Some of their bloodlines were ridiculously weak, and some of them knew nothing about spatial laws. 7 days was not a long time for Lin Feng. However, it was enough for him to handle many things, such as raising funds. Heavenly Tea Pavilion's efficiency was quite amazing, and they had enough funds in reserve. Tens of billions of void crystals could be taken out without blinking an eye. Chief Steward Qian Fulai was grinning from ear to ear. Previously, he had collected ordinary true treasures. This time, he had collected elite true treasures. Every elite true treasure was enough to become the cornerstone treasure of one of Heavenly Tea Pavilion's branches. Even the Azure Dragon auction house rarely auctioned elite true treasures. However, Heavenly Tea Pavilion now had them. Moreover, there were a total of 65 of them. Here are 10. 5 billion void crystals, Brother Lin. Qian Fulai happily served Lin Feng, the god of wealth, with a smile on his face. If you have any more true treasures to sell, you must take care of my business. However, I won't be in the Supreme Dragon Sky City next time. Brother Lin, you can come to Ziming City to find me. Qian Fulai's dream had come true. Previously, when he had obtained 1,000 ordinary true treasures, he had accumulated enough merit to be transferred back to the headquarters. This time, the 65 elite true treasures had allowed him to leap over the Dragon Gate and soar into the sky. Those were elite true treasures that were rarely seen in auctions. They could only be found by chance. However, he had collected 65 of them all at once, which made a group of chief stewards at the headquarters envious. Lin Feng nodded softly. By the way, the matter I asked Brother Qian to do before, Brother Lin, don't worry. Even if I have to exhaust myself and go through fire and water for you, I will definitely help you get it done properly. Qian Fulai patted his chest confidently. I don't dare to say anything else, but I am quite confident in collecting the heaven and earth fruit. As long as the Origin Awakening continent has it now, I can get it. It's just a matter of how much money I have. Lin Feng nodded. When it came to purchasing, it depended on channels and connections. Qian Fu, who had been working in the Heavenly Tea Pavilion for countless eras, was able to do this easily. Even the Bai Jing Dragon King, who was in charge of the Azure Dragon auction house, might not necessarily be as good as him. Okay, I will come to you when the time comes. If I don't come in time, continue to help me purchase. Lin Feng took out 3 billion void crystals from the 5 billion void crystals and placed them on the table. These 3 billion void crystals are the deposit. If it's not enough, help me pay for it temporarily. Qian Fulai did not hesitate and accepted it. Brother Lin, you trust me. I will not let you down. Don't worry, leave it to me. What a joke. If he, Qian Fulai, could not handle this matter well, how could he face others? Lin Feng chuckled and nodded. After exchanging a few more words with Qian Fulai, he left. After deducting the 6 billion nightmare blood crystals, plus the bits and pieces he still had about 1 billion void crystals. It was enough. Selling 65 elite true treasures was nothing to Lin Feng. He had too many elite true treasures. And elite true treasures were not very useful to him now. But the premium of true treasures now is really amazing. It is 80% higher than the normal price. Lin Feng sighed softly and laughed. The average price of 65 elite true treasures was close to 200 million void crystals each. One should know that for an elite true treasure in a normal state, 200 million void crystals was almost a top-tier elite true treasure. But now, a mid-level elite true treasure was probably sold for 200 million void crystals. The void turbulence is about to open. Everyone is doing their best to prepare. Lin Feng was very clear about the reason, including himself. Leaving Heavenly Tea Pavilion, Lin Feng crossed the street and stepped into the Azure Dragon auction house. It's time to meet Brother Shi and the others. Chapter 1918. Song Dragon Auction House. Inside the main hall, Lin Feng and Bai Jing Dragon King completed the transaction of 6 billion void crystals worth of nightmare blood crystals. Bai Jing Dragon King raised her long eyelashes and said, I heard that Heavenly Tea Pavilion got another batch of elite true treasures. Yes, 65 pieces, Lin Feng answered. Bai Jing Dragon King's beautiful eyes flashed. You are honest. I've always been honest. Lin Feng smiled. I can hide it from others, but not from the owner of Song Dragon Auction House. Besides, as long as the Dragon King asks, I'll answer. He was grateful to Bai Jing Dragon King. No matter what the reason was, she did save him. Based on this point alone, he would not hide it from her. Actually, if you don't have enough money, you can barter. You can use elite true treasures to exchange with the auction house. Bai Jing Dragon King pursed her red lips, looking a little disappointed. 65 elite true treasures was a big deal. Even Song Dragon Auction House could not ignore it, especially when the main deal was elite true treasures, which are the most scarce treasures of the moment. Lin Feng looked at Bai Jing Dragon King. From her expression, he could read a lot of information. As the owner of Song Dragon Auction House, his sale of elite true treasures would affect the whole situation. It would increase the prestige of Heavenly Tea Pavilion and indirectly trample on Song Dragon Auction House. In the past, it would not have mattered, but now it was indeed inappropriate. I didn't consider it thoroughly. Lin Feng originally thought that Song Dragon Auction House's rules were too rigid. They were all about money and goods, so he did not want to negotiate with Song Dragon Auction House. He was not a person who liked trouble. If he could do it directly, there was no need to beat around the bush. How about this? Lin Feng pondered. If the Dragon King needs it, I can also sell you elite true treasures, and more than what Heavenly Tea Pavilion is selling. Really? Bai Jing Dragon King was shocked and delighted. Her beautiful eyes flashed. Don't speak carelessly. A word spoken cannot be taken back, Lin Feng replied. Bai Jing Dragon Queen stared at Lin Feng and snorted. At least you still have the heart and are not ungrateful. I'll let it go this time. Ignorance is bliss. However, the next time you want to sell your treasures, you must look for me. Do you hear me? Don't worry, I will only recognize you, Dragon Queen Bai Jing. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. The White Dragon Queen snorted softly. Her jade-like face blushed. I'm only selling the treasure to me. I don't have any other intentions. Don't overthink it. What other meaning? Lin Feng asked in surprise. Bai Jing Dragon Queen's face turned even redder. She murmured softly, her plump chest rising and falling slightly. Nothing much. Have you decided on the invitation from the Milky Way human tribe? What do you think, Dragon King? Lin Feng asked. What do you mean what I think? Whether you join or not has nothing to do with me. Bai Jing Dragon Queen was slightly annoyed. Lin Feng smiled and said, I don't know much about the Milky Way human tribe. Dragon Queen, you are knowledgeable and experienced. Therefore, I would like to hear your opinion. What do you mean by knowledgeable? Are you saying that I'm very old? Bai Jing Dragon Queen glared at him with a hint of anger. Of course I don't mean that. Dragon King, you're a peerless beauty who can topple cities. You don't look old at all. Lin Feng smiled. Flattery always worked. The most taboo thing for a woman was to say that she was old. Bai Jing Dragon Queen gave, that's more like it look. Her expression turned serious. I have only cultivated for a few hundred eras. I'm not even 1,000 years old. Among the 9-star experts, I can be considered young. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, most 9-star experts were at least a few thousand or 10,000 years old. A few hundred years was indeed considered young. I have a question for you, Bai Jing Dragon Queen said. Tell me honestly. Lin Feng nodded. Bai Jing Dragon Queen's beautiful eyes flickered. Since you came from Milky Way, that means you don't have a teacher or background. You cultivated from head to toe and broke through on your own? Yes. Lin Feng didn't hide the truth. Bai Jing Dragon Queen's beautiful face revealed a shocked expression. After a long while, she let out a long sigh and said softly, After seeing you, I finally know what a demon-like genius is. To be able to have such strength on your own, it's unheard of. I also had some fortuitous encounters, Lin Feng said. Bai Jing Dragon Queen shook her head. To become an expert, who didn't have some fortuitous encounters? Among the 9-star experts in Origin Awakened continent, how many of them really relied on themselves to reach their current level? When they were young, they had teachers to guide them and provide them with the best nurturing conditions. Those who truly relied on themselves were few and far between. Moreover, although those who cultivated independently eventually became 9-star experts, the time they spent was much less compared to yours. Lin Feng nodded. There was a huge difference between having someone to guide and not. For himself, if someone could guide him, perhaps his nomological laws would have already reached the great perfection realm. However, Bai Jing Dragon Queen pursed her lips and said, I know a little about what you did in the Destiny realm. The Destiny race will definitely not let you go. Today, it was Wu Erai. Tomorrow, it may be Wu Yuelong, Wu Jitian, or even the most terrifying Wu Long. That's a transcendent being ranked 7th on the Source Awaken list. He's not inferior to the legendary Dongwang clan leader of the Milky Way human tribe. The Destiny race has always been vengeful. They will definitely not give up. Bai Jing Dragon Queen sighed. Wu Erai failed to assassinate you and never left. He wanted to continue looking for opportunities. In the end, the Gold Dragon King of the Tsang Dragon Auction House and the deadly Extreme Master Chu appeared together and drove him away. Lin Feng nodded. He knew the personality of the Destiny race very well. So, Dragon Queen, you're saying that I should join the Milky Way human tribe? Lin Feng smiled. Bai Jing Dragon Queen nodded. I know, you have your pride, so you haven't joined any forces until now. But sometimes background and resources are also very important, especially since you're from the Milky Way. You're perfectly compatible with the Milky Way human tribe. This is actually a kind of fate. For you, I believe this is a good opportunity. Although the Milky Way human tribe is divided into 2 factions, the Ancestor clan has more people, but the Milky Way clan has absolute sovereignty. They are more competitive than hostile. Lin Feng nodded. Clan leader Dongwang clan and deputy clan leader Shi Dingshan were both from the Milky Way clan, so they naturally had absolute sovereignty. Strictly speaking, the Ancestor clan also belonged to the Milky Way, so there was no difference in nature. There would naturally be disputes, but which clan and force didn't have such disputes? There is a saying in Huaxia, where there are people, there will be conflicts. Since ancient times, as long as one had absolute strength to settle down, one didn't need to worry about such miscellaneous things. Chapter 1919. Lin Feng, are you planning to enter the turbulent void? Bai Jing Dragon King asked. Lin Feng nodded. The turbulent void is very chaotic. Not only is the void itself extremely dangerous, but all the forces and clans are fighting openly and secretly. The big fish eat the small fish, and the small fish eat the shrimps. If you act alone, you're 100% likely to encounter danger. Perhaps you have strong self-protection abilities, but don't underestimate any 9-star strong being. Each and every one of them has experienced all sorts of tempering in order to survive until now. Wu Ergu is only average among the 9-star strong beings. There are many who are much stronger than him. The turbulent void is a furnace of hell. 7-star and 8-star strong beings who can walk through the 3 forbidden lands as if they are walking on flat ground find it difficult to survive in the turbulent void. Of course, if they can survive, the possibility of breaking through to 9-star is very high. This is also why the 8-star strong beings are fighting for the key to the turbulent void, because it is really difficult to become a 9-star strong being. Bai Jing Dragon King said seriously with a serious expression, if you join the Milky Way human tribe, you will act with the strong beings of the same clan. There is a 90% chance that a 9-star strong being will lead a few 8-star strong beings. First, your safety will be guaranteed. As long as you don't enter the hinterland, which is the depths of the turbulent void, you will be able to protect yourself. Moreover, the 8 forces and the 5 clans rarely kill each other. They will be wary of each other. Not to mention, the Milky Way human tribe has always been united. Dongwang and Shi Dingshan are famous for being protective. However, if you join the Destiny race, Bai Jing Dragon King still sounded worried. She said softly, no matter what, at least it is much safer than you going alone. I am not here to persuade you on behalf of the Milky Way human tribe. I'm just giving you a small suggestion as a friend. Bai Jing Dragon King blushed slightly. She looked away and then returned to normal. I see. Lin Feng nodded. He looked at Bai Jing Dragon King and smiled. Thank you for your suggestion, Dragon King. Lin Feng will keep in mind. Have you made a decision? Bai Jing Dragon King asked. Yes, Lin Feng replied with a smile. Auction hall, top floor, box 1. Even though the auction had ended, with Shi Dingshan's status, it was not a problem for him to stay in box 1 for a few days. The huge box was like a castle. Not to mention 10 people, even 10,000 people could easily stay in it. Hua! The door opened, and Lin Feng stepped in alone. Brother Lin Feng is indeed punctual. Shi Dingshan smiled and nodded. His voice was like a bell, and his resolute face was like a boulder, steady and magnanimous. Just from his appearance, one could tell that Shi Dingshan was a man who stuck to his heart. Besides Shi Dingshan, Su In, dressed in a black robe and wearing a wicked smile, crossed his arms and sat on the golden armrest of Shi Dingshan's chair. Today was the 6th day. Brother Shi, Brother Su, Lin Feng bowed slightly. Have you made a decision? Shi Dingshan asked. Lin Feng nodded. He glanced at the two and smiled. I'm willing to join the Milky Way human tribe. Shi Dingshan laughed loudly, and his laughter echoed in the huge box. It was hearty and hearty, showing the joy in his heart. Suin gave a thumbs up with his right hand, winked at Lin Feng, and smiled. We will be a family from now on. Yes, you will be a member of the Milky Way human tribe from now on. Shi Dingshan stood up, and his huge body carried a domineering aura. He patted Lin Feng's shoulder with his huge palm. Whoever dares to touch you will be going against the human tribe of the Milky Way. Even the Destiny tribe is no exception. Shi Dingshan's powerful voice carried a domineering aura, and his eyes were like torches. Lin Feng's heart was warmed. He could tell that Brother Shi's every word was sincere and came from his heart. In order to protect him, he could really go against the Destiny tribe, even if he had to sacrifice his life. Even Brother Su, who was carefree and somewhat frivolous, was a man of temperament. He could feel it with his sixth sense. It was not difficult to make this decision, because just as Bai Jing Dragon King said, he came from Milky Way and was fated to meet Patriarch Dongwang. Joining the human tribe of the Milky Way was like fate. He did have some hesitation before, but Bai Jing Dragon King's words dispelled his last bit of hesitation. He was very strong and was a genius. But a genius was just a genius, not a strong person. Since the ancient times, too many geniuses had fallen, their numbers uncountable, as numerous as mud and stone. A genius who could not grow into a strong person was just a passing cloud, buried in the dust of history. He was still very weak now. Compared to the Destiny tribe, it was like the difference between a firefly and the sun. Wu Irai alone could take his life. One had to know that there were many people in the Destiny tribe who were stronger than Wu Irai. Wu Yuelong, ranked 30th on the Origin Awakening list, Wu Jiqian, ranked 13th on the Origin Awakening list, and Wu Long, ranked 7th on the Origin Awakening list. He even felt that the Destiny tribe still had a trump card. They could become the leader of the 5 major tribes and stand tall in the Origin Awakening continent for countless years. Even if they were surrounded by enemies, even if they were completely isolated, they could survive until now. It was not just because of the impact of death. After all, there were not many Destiny tribe members. If the 8 major forces joined forces, even if the Destiny tribe's impact of death could kill some strong people, it was enough to exterminate the Destiny tribe. With the Destiny tribe's reproductive ability, if they killed all their members except for the 9-star strong people, how could the Destiny tribe survive? Even if they survived, they would only have half a breath left. There was no need to fight with this terrifying tribe that had survived since ancient times. When he was not strong enough, it was not shameful to rely on the wings of the Milky Way's human tribe. In the future, when he became a 9-star strong person, he would have the ability to protect himself. At that time, he would compete with the Destiny tribe. At that time, he would wreak havoc in the Destiny realm. At that time, he would kill Wu Irai. In the future, please take care of me, Brother Shi and Brother Su, Lin Feng said with a smile. Don't worry, I will take care of you. Suin patted his chest and raised his eyebrows slightly. I don't hold grudges. I won't take it to heart that you stole my nightmare blood crystal. Don't worry. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Shi Dingshan laughed heartily. Sixth brother is joking with you. Everyone in our tribe is a good brother. When we go back, I will introduce third sister and fourth brother to you. There is also Big Brother. If Big Brother sees you, he will be very happy. With Lin Feng's aptitude and talent, I believe that under the cultivation of our tribe, it will be easy for you to become a 9-star strong person. At that time, the number of 9-star strong people in our Milky Way's human tribe will surpass the Destiny tribe and be on par with the Z-Way Star Tower. Sherding Shan's eyes were filled with ambition and dominance. Lin Feng felt the same way. This was the pride and honor of the tribe, a belief and will. Sherding Shan had a grand goal. He wanted to tell the entire Origin Awakening continent that their Milky Way's human tribe was the strongest